Like to open the meeting at 7:34. Littleton Conservation Commission, April 22nd. Minutes. Anybody got any minutes they want to approve or disapprove?
Well, I have a couple notes, but very, very small. Just edits.
Anybody else?
Nope, they look good.
Oh, actually, I have one question.
Knew that would happen.
You
waited too long.
Yeah. The 10 Cricket Lane, notice of intent, U463C. It doesn't have a Mass DB number yet, but
It does now, but it didn't then.
oh, it's in man 1, 2. The third paragraph, almost at the end, it said the 3 conditions are using the jute netting, silt fence with acquirables, and the construction sequence. But what about the planting and the rain garden? That isn't part
Wait,
of
you're
the
talking
condition?
about Manawanaki?
No, this is 10 Cricket Lane. Is this the right minutes?
Well, 10 Cricket Lane hasn't been issued yet.
April 22nd? Is that what I reviewed?
Did you skip
Be
a page?
Cricket Lane.
What page number are you on? Because Cricket Lane starts on page 2 and ends on page 3. But Manawanaki
Yes.
goes on to page 4.
Oh, I am missing a page. Sorry, it's not Cricket Lane, it's whatever's in between.
That's 93 Manawanaki.
Okay, Manawanaki. Sorry about that. Must be on the floor of my house from the printer.
Which one are you missing? 3 or 4?
3.
Here.
There's 3. Okay, yeah. Okay. So it's just, I thought that the other condition would be that they do the plantings that they said, that, and the rain garden. Isn't that part of the condition?
Well, that's part of their plan, so it wouldn't really be a condition for Manawanaki.
Okay. Okay. So I thought rain garden was kind of part of the erosion control kind of thing, or at least.
It's shown on the plan, on the approved plans.
Okay.
So,
So
So you
don't
have
just-
to do it
what
anyways.
you're
I got
Right.
it.
proposing to do.
Okay,
Right.
so that's it. That was the only question I had.
And that would be part of the findings also.
Right.
It would be up front.
Anybody else?
Okay, here, 3 pages of my notes.
Can I have a motion from somebody to accept the minutes?
So I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes of April 22nd, 2019 as amended.
Second it?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Administrative discussion. Library project. What's the story with that?
That was as much a reminder to me, the town library project. I don't know if you wanted to have them come in and talk to you again, because it's been quite a while, and I was starting to get nervous that they're going to be down there in the 50-foot no disturb area or something. So would you like me to see if, and they're more than willing to come in into one of the June meetings?
That'd be great, actually.
Okay.
To do it sooner versus, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that'd be good.
Okay, little
Yep.
free library at Oak Hill, Harvard Road.
She couldn't make it tonight. She'll come in.
Long Lake Fishing Dock.
This is, I think I mentioned it, someone was offering to pay for at least one of the fishing docks over at Long Lake to rebuild them, and I guess there'd been up to 3 out there.
So I actually have some pictures here for everybody.
So Tim and I have been going around in circles on the permitting piece of this, because it's a Chapter 91,
Yes.
the whole thing. So Tim is now, and will soon be hopefully the harbor master,
Yep.
which
Thank you.
really smooths out the Chapter 91 permitting. Still need to do the Wetland Protection Act permitting,
Yeah.
but you can give you a quick rundown.
Yeah, so I actually just left the Board of Selectmen meeting. So we did talk briefly about the Harbor Master training, whether they're going to continue that or appoint somebody different. I did volunteer myself to kind of go for that if they so deemed. To give you kind of what we did here, so at the Board of Selectmen meeting, the main purpose that I went is the Board of Selectmen acting as the Harbor Master since 1982. We've kind of lost focus on Chapter 91 and what is kind of required by that. One of that is, if you look at the second page here, these are the applications for temporary docks, floats, and mooring permits, which are required for our great ponds. We have 5 of them here in the town of Littleton. I worked with the Harbor Master over in Groton He helped me kind of convert what he uses for his, and I made them for Long Lake Beach for the summer, so we were compliant as a town entity. And in my conversations with Amy, the picture you see here, one of the requests I get is there's no place for the kids to fish or anyone. They fish in the swim zone. There's hooks everywhere. It kind of becomes a nuisance. When the frog pond was created, these 3 docks, the one is kind of a little further down. You can barely see it if you look between the trees, but you can see the brown line that goes out into the water. These were 3 docks that were put in. They were heaved by the ice. There's actually, the very first one is still submerged underwater, right as it sits. So in the permitting, what I did was I put together permits on behalf of the Conservation Commission under Amy for the Board of Selectmen to sign if we so choose to reconstruct these docks.
For the Chapter 91.
For the Chapter 91 permitting. So the Board of Selectmen have copies of these, which they're going to sign, and I'm going to give to Amy once they're put in. But if you wanted to look through, basically it was just what they would look like being a temporary seasonal, so we don't, build something and lose it again. And then we can figure out where we're going to store them and what we're going to do in order to come up with a better solution.
So it is conservation property.
Right.
That they'd be on. There's someone who would be helping to pay for at least one of them. And I mostly just want to make sure that I had direction from you guys to go ahead with permitting, trying to figure out who's going to pay for this.
So are you looking for each of the 3 to then go out 3 sections, or just adding 3 more sections?
So they don't exist anymore.
Right.
They're gone. Personally, I think that they should go out a little further, especially with how the lake's dropping right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's seen we actually have about 15 linear feet of beach as of today. We're almost all the way to the end of where the concrete on the inside the lake was at the boat ramp. So it's definitely gotten a lot back. So where these sat, I think we definitely would need to go out 1 or 2 more sections.
And your sections are 12?
They're about 12 feet, yeah.
Yeah, I would go out, just, you get vegetation there. I mean,
Right.
there's no way a kid could even fish off there.
Right. So the one thing I did mention to Amy is if all goes as planned, we're going to be getting some new docks to replace the sailing dock. For those of you who are familiar, that's the dock over by the boat ramp. It's the aluminum barrier with the green. So if we wanted to do like a temporary setup and just kind of see how far we have to go out and things like that, when that dock is disbanded, once we get the new dock in here, we could utilize those sections before we actually invest money and build anything as a temporary structure there to see how it works.
Do you have a use for the retired docks? The ones that you're retiring?
Right
that you're
now, no.
replacing? Okay.
I have had a couple of requests for them if we do get rid of them, but if this was, this would be the immediate kind of, if you guys were interested in doing this to see how it worked and how far we need to go out and what we need to actually do in order to get structures, especially if we wanted to make something like what existed before. I think that would be a good option for us.
Would they be, the pilings at the end? I see, pile guide.
So under Chapter 91, that's where, it gets, you go from the temporary permit to where Amy was talking about, where you need to go more to, what was the other name of the permit, Amy?
The Wetlands Protection Act?
The Wetland Protection Act, when you start driving piles and stuff.
Well, you need that for
Right.
even if it's temporary.
Right.
You need 2 different permits, so.
But the piles are a little more invasive when it comes into the wet. They view that a little bit differently.
Yeah.
It's a little more of a process to get through. So, what you would be looking at here is something either with the 12 by 12 feet on the bottom, which is how that green dock currently sits, and it has the aluminum adjustable poles, or you could go to something like what we use for the floating dock in the middle of the beach, where you can pound the post in there, but they're removable.
So because we had existing docks there, is there any type of grandfather or a maintenance type where you're just replacing it, but it's already permitted because it's existing?
So they're not they were your docks.
Actually, they were put in by the Clean Lakes Committee.
Yep.
So and the Clean Lakes Committee was supposed
Let's
to
make them pay
maintain
for it.
I think you should look into that before you completely start a new permit. I would just,
I'm not sure they're ever permitted
So
to
nothing.
begin with.
yeah, but they were existing, so you could just say they were.
They're,
Which
well,
is
it's up to you.
We have pictures of them, they're in there.
Well, how old is this
There are
picture?
pictures
No,
of them.
of course, but
07.
the-
So-
Google Maps.
The
So
wetland, the
Oh, so-
wetland
yeah.
Old enough.
design was permitted, wasn't it? Or portable?
Yeah, I'm sure that was because it was engineered by Geocinta.
Yeah, because it was a
Make them do
whole
it.
wetland design. It
Oh,
must have been permitted.
I
under
wouldn't be
the-
surprised if you could replace them under the existing permit.
But the permit's probably completed, right? No.
It's a good track to just think about that.
Anyway, it's up to you guys if you want to, what's Protection Act filing or not. Chapter 91 has its own life and is taken
Right.
care of.
Yeah.
And it's not
91 is
going
actually
to concern you
seasonal
at all.
law, so-
It's really the Weather Protection Act piece of it.
Right. If
Yeah.
it's
And whether you want
permanent.
Versus
three.
if someone wants to put a tier in or something.
I would focus
That's different.
on
These are
one.
just seasonal logs.
One
I think you still have to do something.
usable long dock to get beyond those weeds.
Well, there really is a sunken area where the other one is too.
It almost
And
looks
they're
like a ramp.
well used. I would recommend two.
I think you need at least two.
I think you need at
All right,
least
let me ask you this: would people pull a? Could you make it multi-purpose? Could it be a dock where people could actually pull a boat up to, like a kayak, or get in a
People do
kayak?
launch from there. They do launch their boat. I launch my canoe from there, from those areas.
So it could be potentially a multi-purpose.
Good.
But you said you will have some remnants of the one you take out, you're replacing, that could go in there, plus what's there.
So I currently have, once we get the new dock in, there'll be 7 sections of the other dock, which is 10 foot by 4 foot in measurement.
I like the idea to try and see how far you need to go and
Definitely.
put 'em over. There is one request going forward if we're looking to extend fishing, that if we can have something from an educational standpoint to have the string containers from the fishing
Oh,
line.
yeah.
So you see them a lot on a lot of the fishing piers. So if we're gonna, the goal is to get more kids fishing, which I support. We need to have some education of catch and release and also string.
That's a good point.
So one of the things we are bringing on board, and I'm sure most of you have heard about some of the boats that we purchased, but we are trying to start up a kids fishing program, which was the intention for one of those boats, where we would do education. We did the family fishing clinic last summer. Unfortunately, this year we weren't able to get it in with all the rain. Everybody was really up against it. But yeah, the PVC, you can Google those and how to make them, and I'd be more than happy to kind of work them into our designs anywhere, as well as we have some new no fishing signs coming in, and whatever. If you have some signs in mind, just email them to me, and hopefully we can figure it out, especially if we put these docks up.
Could probably get scouts to do the PVC.
So what do you want to do, folks? We've got other things to do tonight, so
It's honestly entirely up to you. You might be able to get away with a temporary use of the existing sailing dock with or without a permit, because to replace the existing one that was out there,
Right.
it's got to be a good 24 to 36 feet long, you're thinking? Al?
Oh, his section.
Yeah, so I don't know that, and really it's up to
His sections
what
are-
you.
your sections
just
are
do
only
it.
10 foot.
They're 10
Yours are-
foot, we have
yeah.
7 of
Oh, yeah,
them,
just
so
Yeah, so.
we
And you said
could,
2 sections.
if we set them up,
2 sections.
if we set them up the same way, you could either go 2 sections out, it would probably take 3, I think you're right, to get out past these
Yeah.
lily pads. The other thing we can do is set it up like the sailing dock, where it's, the docks are configured right now where it's 1, 2, 3 sections, and then it's a left L with 2 sections. So, 4 sections and a left L.
What's the timing on the new dock? When would the sailing dock be available?
My hope is, so CPC funds become available July 1st, so sometime in that range.
but you gotta take that other one out before you
The
can
one that's
bring the new
floating
one
in
in.
there.
It takes, we're gonna put it in tomorrow. It takes about 10 minutes. It's just adjusting the bolts, putting a level on it, and it's pretty simple to set it in place.
So you're trying to keep these as close to the parking lot as possible, I'm assuming?
So this is on Lakeshore. Really,
Make sure the one that goes to the right of the...
Yeah.
yeah, if you're standing on the beach, it's to the right.
With the parallel parking right next to it.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, so this is where the gentleman's walking his dog. If you work your way back towards, if you were even with the edge of that dock, that's
Yeah.
where the first parking space on Lakeshore Drive for the
Okay.
beach starts, and then you work your way away from you.
So,
I think that's Jim.
Somebody's got to make a proposal, guys. We got to keep.
yeah, we're gonna,
So,
So, what do we want to do? You want to do it temporary, or do you want to?
why don't we just let them do what
you
he's
got,
got
you gotta
there.
say,
But I think we need to look into the permitting because I've put temporary structures in rivers before and it's still required a permit. And sometimes the Chapter 91 permit can be dependent on whether you do an NOI. And so
If
some
you
of that.
have a harbor master, it's
Okay,
streamlined.
okay,
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
okay, so that.
So
I guess
Right now,
that would
that's
be
the Board of
my-
Selectmen.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they might need an order of conditions to solidify the Chapter 91, but you
Yeah.
get the Chapter 91 first, and it's
Okay.
contingent on.
okay.
but let's still talk about sections. I like to kind of have a game plan with sections, or make this that this is the year that they kind of try and figure out configuration.
I liked the L, if we have enough sections for it.
Get the most
Okay.
kids on there too.
Yeah. I like the L.
As long as you can get it
Look at each
beyond,
other, yeah.
as long as you can get it beyond the weeds.
Well, right, exactly. Depending on.
Well.
But you don't know what the bottom is either.
I understand.
August.
Sorry.
You don't know what the bottom is
It's
like
gonna be-
out
it's
there
gonna be
either
tough no
until you
matter
start
how
doing
you do
it.
it.
It's
pretty muddy.
I wouldn't want to condition
Why don't we-
past the
Well, I
weeds.
wasn't making
Just
that
let
a
it go.
condition. Maybe look at where the best location would be to put this with,
It may be a different location.
maybe a different location.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, if you guys can help me and figure out exactly where you do that, I'll do whatever it takes so that we can kind of help each other out because the fishing.
I love
thing's
the
a real
idea
hot
of
topic
using
for
your
us.
docks as changeover as well.
Yeah, I mean, the existing locations are probably the best because there's no vegetation. Well, otherwise, in between those little sunken areas where the docks are, there's a lot of, some invasive, some prickle
Yeah.
bushes.
So are we looking at 3 separate locations as there was
Those are the
historically?
existing, yes.
But they're very short sections.
Very short sections.
And the only thing that really, I'm sure literal drift is not an issue here, but if you have 3 of them, it becomes an issue with ducks trying to swim by.
Hmm.
I think that's the
Oh.
only thing worth considering, but once they're out, to get beyond one, they just stay out.
But not each section is going to go out to an L. I don't think you have enough docks to do that.
No,
do
we
you?
don't.
Yeah.
So I'm saying we can either break them
Right.
apart and you can do a couple individual sections, or you can go one. That's completely up to the board and what you guys would like to see.
I think
Yeah, it
two-
depends on the
Which-
weeds,
Which
really.
one says the least weeds?
Two of them are the most clear. The third one has been gone so long that I think
Right.
it has vegetation
Oh,
growing
okay.
out.
I agree with that.
So why don't we just focus on 1 and 2?
Which one's
Okay.
that's the one?
Yeah, the one that's furthest.
You had how many sections? 7?
7.
Why don't you just let him see what he can do?
7
Yeah.
feet. Yeah, I mean.
I guess
we
the
need
question
to
really
look,
is, do you want
but-
a notice of intent on it?
On the temporary one?
Yeah. Or is this,
I don't
think
think so,
experiment
because I
grandfathers.
think it was historic, and I think that if we're coming up with an agreement that this is just for this term, then we can see, we have to have some point of discovery to figure out how far we have to go anyway, so I'm okay with just going till, this season. Okay.
And then I'll come back in October and we can come up with a
Yeah.
game plan for
You'll
next
be-
year. And
We'll have another harbor master of such. Okay.
okay,
All right.
thank you guys for your time. I really
You need a
appreciate it.
Thank you,
motion
Jen.
on that?
You want
so
to
maybe
vote?
call it
Yeah.
to start trying to figure out what
Just
it's
so
gonna
that
Okay.
it's clean.
So I move that we authorize in sections known as 1 and 2,
You're gonna do 3.
no more than 4 sections each. Configuring of each section is approximately 4 by 10, and that a straight figuration or an L figuration is acceptable based on weeds.
Second.
For a second.
So you said, what, no more than 2 or 3 sections?
No more than 4, because he only has 7.
Okay.
And the configuration of a straight line or L based on the weeds. So moved.
Julie seconded it, right?
Andrew seconded.
Oh, Andrew seconded it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I mean, I
Okay.
would
Thank you,
second,
guys.
but he beat me.
Okay. Can we go ahead and start?
I guess we're gonna have to start. We have to come back to this.
Yeah, the rest of the stuff can wait.
Public hearing notice of intent, 686 Great Road, outlet to Spectacle Pond, R24-15 and 16, map, Mass DEP file number 204-889, installation of a new concrete stop log and
Who's representing that?
testing for low flow release.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So, and I have the photos that we were going to show you guys on the screen on my computer if you need to look at them. But basically, we're here today to talk about the Stony Brook Stream Flow Restoration Project. It's been a project that's kind of been a few years in the making. So before I get into like the details of the installation, we thought we'd give you a bit of background on the project. Basically, it started in 2017 with the Dam Dashboard pilot project, where we installed monitoring stations upstream and downstream of small dams in the watershed, including Spectacle Pond. And basically, these are linked to online dashboards that operators like Corey could access at any time to see what's the water level in the pond, what's the flow downstream, to kind of just get a better idea of what was going on in the watershed. And then it kind of evolved last year with our first grant under the Water Management Act grant to do a regional calibrated surface water model of the Stony Brook watershed. And basically what we're looking at is whether stream flow downstream of these small dams and these artificial impoundments could be improved through logic supported operation of the dams. So basically if we're looking at an impoundment has a whole lot of water in it and there's a low flow downstream, could we use that water to do a low flow release to help supplement the downstream resource area? And based on the results of that model, we found that we had up to 25% improvement downstream of Spectacle Pond, which seemed pretty significant, so we wanted to keep looking at it. So that brings us to this year, where we're again working under the Water Management Act grant to continue the work on the project, where we're doing some stream gauging to further refine the results of the model, and we want to do some empirical testing, so that's what we're here to talk to you guys about. We're also doing some groundwater well study information, but really we're here to talk to you guys about the
And is this the
empirical
only
testing.
site that you're looking at in town?
Yes.
Okay.
For this part of the, so when we did the original Stony Brook, that includes Mill Pond as well in the watershed, but Mill Pond has so much sediment that the sluice gates are inoperable. So right now we're looking at Spectacle Pond to test it out.
And where else are you doing this in the region?
We're doing it at Forge Pond, so we're working with Westford at the Forge Pond Dam. And then we started to look at the Stony Brook Dam in Westford as well, and that had a few more engineering complications for that dam. So that one's kind of on hold for now. We'll see if we can revisit it if we potentially get more funding. So right now we're under the Water Management Act grant, but it's also been selected as a DER priority project.
Okay.
So we're hoping for continued funding through that.
And how much is the funding? This circuit?
This circuit's 130, is that right?
Yeah, I think last year was like 70,000. This year was 130,000, and then we have the DER funding, but it's close to $250,000 by now, by the end of this year. So.
Okay. Thank you.
So kind of how the logic works, if you guys want to see these images that I wanted to pull up for you guys.
Is that in this packet?
That's not in the packet.
Okay.
So this is how the model logic worked, that where we got that 25% potential improvements. Basically, these dashboards are fed by these monitoring stations, and they're looking is the flow low downstream?
Okay.
And if it is, then it looks at the upstream water level, and it says, is the water level upstream in the impoundment sufficient to potentially do a release? If it is, then it looks at the rain forecast, because if we expect rain, there's not really a need to do a low flow release.
How far, sorry, I'm just catching up. How far downstream is the furthest monitor?
It's only like 20 feet downstream at Spectacle Pond.
Yeah. Are you talking about the watershed?
It's
So that would be the Stony Brook Dam in Westford. It's the furthest downstream.
in the watershed, yeah.
Okay.
So basically, if all those criteria met by the logic, it sends an email alert to the users like Corey and
Okay.
Geosyntec and says it recommends you initiate a release.
Okay.
So that's kind of all feeding this. But in order to do those releases, we have to make a minor modification to Spectacle Pond's outlet structure,
Okay.
which is what we're here to talk to you guys about.
The whole structure or just?
Just a stop log.
Oh,
So it's an existing concrete stop log structure with two rectangular weirs.
and that's on page 2.
Yes, and so our proposal is to replace one or two of those stop logs with a new stop log that has a valve in it, so we can have better control over those slow, low flow releases.
Okay.
So in order to install it, we think it's going to be pretty low risk. There's at the top of the head wall, there's an existing like cleared area where we can park a backhoe and pull out the existing stop logs and lower in the new ones. So we don't have any heavy equipment entering the resource area. We have no permanent impacts because it goes in the existing structure, and little to no temporary impacts. So But Forge Pond is a priority habitat for Blanding's turtle. We submitted a project review application to Natural Heritage, and they approved the project as long as we did the testing between mid-April and mid-October,
Okay.
which was consistent with our project schedule, so it fits in pretty well. So, hoping it's going to be a great project that'll help hopefully supplement the downstream flow and improve that resource area as well.
What
So
do you-
this has to be like, it looks very mechanical, like somebody has to actually physically open it, right?
It is,
Yeah.
for now. The dream is to someday, maybe it'll be automated, and you can just do, because we've done that with other projects, like with rain bear cisterns and stuff like that, where you can have like an automated dashboard and you just click a button.
Yeah.
But for now, it would be a hand.
Somebody's
crank.
got to get exercise.
And poison ivy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And again, this is like the testing phase, we're just trying to see, is our model like even right, is this actually going to work in real life?
So how do you tell, like from a measurement standpoint, how is there a measurement to like how far to crank it open or?
So we suggest we modeled it with it fully open. We sized different sizes of orifices in the model and felt that 12-inch fit well with how slow we wanted to do the release.
Okay, so it would be just all the way open
And then it would close. So the logic is set up so that when the pond is approaching the minimum acceptable level of the water level, it sends another email alert and says, hey, you're gonna have to do a release soon. And then as soon as you hit that level, it says you need to go and close the valve.
okay.
Does
So
this
it's
allow
how
fish
long?
passage?
The existing structure, I don't think the existing structure does.
And it's an issue with turtles too.
Yeah.
So one day we'll have
I really hate
enough
that.
money left over to do something.
Yeah.
No one's got the money.
That was put in. I don't know if you guys remember that when 19 was completely washed out essentially. Back, I don't know if it was 10 years ago or what it was.
Okay.
That was put in under emergency situations. By
Yeah, no,
Mass
that
DOT.
that
There
was bad.
there was,
Yeah,
That's where
Scary.
Ian lived there for like months. Yeah,
Wow.
that was
so I don't think a lot of thought was put into those kinds of things. They were just working fast to get it
Yeah.
done. And
No, roads were closed
Yeah.
and they had no time.
Yeah, because I think there's a pretty good drop here, and there's a decent drop down at Gilson
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
so there's some barriers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any
And
other
can you-
questions?
Yeah, I mean, I know obviously it's a restoration, and I know, there are issues with if a body of water has too much low flow. Can you, I guess, speak to the benefits of, raising the water, just, kind of for the audience and
For downstream? Yeah, so basically
Project.
we developed all of the values that are in the last year's project in the goal setting process. And the low flow is based on aquatic base flow, which is the minimum water you want to maintain in order to support healthy aquatic life. And once you get below that, you start having issues with not just like bare soils, but also fish and things like that. So maintaining that,
help DO too.
yeah,
The spec pond is impaired for DO.
yeah.
So
So
help that.
definitely,
In theory.
definitely downstream, yeah.
Yeah.
trying to find
But-
that table. There was a table in here that showed the percent improvement in natural stream
Oh, yeah, I
conditions
actually
for
have it
each
on
point in the
here.
watershed. And so Spectacle Pond sort of.
So these are all the
does
different
upstream.
like watersheds. These are all the different. Oh no! Oops. Oh no!
That's
all
okay.
all the different model results I have here. And the most dramatic were actually at Spectacle Pond, particularly in drought conditions, is where we see a big improvement because the pond's holding all this water and everything just dries up downstream. And if we can just use a little bit of that and peter it out, we can just maintain the minimum to help that downstream resource area.
And each of the points downstream benefit from each of the upstream releases.
Exactly, it's a cumulative thing that works for the whole watershed. Yeah.
Support it. What do you need from us, Amy?
An order of conditions and a waiver.
All in one motion?
Move to close, issue an order of conditions and a waiver. That works for me.
Does
Less
anybody
typing.
from the audience have any questions or comments about this project?
Assuming we're under the benefit.
Yep. Oh, for sure.
There was a waiver form filled out.
Yep.
in there.
Do you want to make
Yeah.
a motion to move on?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for 10 10 Cricket Lane. That's not right. 686.
Yeah, 686.
Single fund, Mass DEP. Parcels are 24-15 and 16. It's gonna be a long night. Mass DEP file number 204-889 to issue an order of conditions and a waiver under the public benefit category.
Second.
All those in favor?
Right.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thank
Keep us
you.
posted.
Thank you.
We got a lot of water to play with.
So we're hoping it to happen pending the funding from DER, and it should be testing it this summer.
Well,
So-
there is a synchronicity, I think, that as this goes ahead, and there are the culvert replacement and restoration funds out there,
Right.
but they usually don't cover the cost of replacing a culvert like this.
And the nice thing now is
Valuable.
DER is a partner on this project, and they're the ones that manage that funding
Yeah, yeah.
and the program. So
This took 20 years of engineering before this ever got to this point.
Cool. Thank you.
Seriously,
Thank you,
5
guys.
different engineers.
Well, glad we're there.
Stay.
Thank you.
And it's still a dam.
Whoops.
Next is notice of
Maybe another
intent,
20
10
years.
Cricket Lane, construction of
Yeah.
a new single-family home driveway, well and associated grading within the 100 feet buffer zone and riverfront area.
Good evening. My name is Dan Wolf from David Ross Associates. And we were here a couple of weeks ago and presented this project to the commission. It's for the construction of a single-family home. And on the lot, we're also installing a well and a septic system. Some of the work is within the 100-foot buffer zone, but is not at all within the 50-foot zone, which is shown here. There's nothing happening there. We had a site walk, but I understand rain has probably gotten in everyone's way. So I don't know if any other commission members, Anna was there and Amy. I don't know if any of the other members made it out there. But anyway, we had the major components staked out, so hopefully everyone got their bearings that might have been there as to where the house was going. We also had staked out the 50-foot line so that you could see how that laid in, as well as the toe of this fill here, which is the location at its closest proximity to the 50-foot line. In any event, we talked about the house, the rooftop would be, the runoff would be picked up with gutters, brought into a dry well here. We talked about the upper portion of the driveway coming down to a catch basin here into a dry well, and we looked at that location. And then we had talked briefly about putting another infiltration trench down to catch the runoff from the lower part of the driveway. But in preparing the drainage calculations, we found that we got more volume and efficiency out of putting a third dry well in at that location. So that is all being directed there with a swale off to the edge of the driveway. The only other thing we talked about on the site walk is there are two fairly large trees right along the edge of this shared driveway, and it's really a pinch point in the driveway. And so we are proposing to have those two large trees that were identified removed in this process as well. If I may, Anna, did I describe our site walk fairly well? And
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I mean, I'm not quite sure why you have to remove the lower tree, one that's closer to the 50-foot.
It's just right on the edge of the existing driveway there, and that's at an area that the planning board is looking for a passing turnout area. I suppose of the two trees, that would be, this is the more critical one that we want to open up right there.
Dan, can you talk a little bit in terms of this additional dry well that we added under winter or frozen conditions? How do we prevent just kind of like sheeting of water or something on that, and then kind of
What's great about this particular site, and the drainage calculations prove that, is it's so porous that a lot of the water is simply infiltrating into the ground as opposed to any runoff. In fact, the pre-development of the 2-year storm shows that no water is leaving the site. In other words, if this was a clay, till-like soil, you get a lot of runoff from here naturally, even through the forest stuff and everything else. But this particular site, under these conditions, has 0 runoff in the 2-year storm.
So
which
where did you have groundwater during your testing for septic?
we went
And-
down about 12 feet and never found any water. So groundwater is, in this type of soil, is going to seek its own level, which
Yeah.
is down at the elevation of the
It's a
wetlands.
very high,
Yeah.
high hummock there.
Yeah.
And then to get back to your exact question, under frozen ground conditions, these dry wells are 5 feet deep.
Okay.
So the bottom infiltration surface will not be subject to freezing.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe talk a little bit about what you're going to do, because you mentioned leveling off that area.
Right. If I can try to mimic what's happening here, from the wetland area, the hillside comes up and really has a cap right here.
Yeah.
And my clients call this the cupcake because it really has a shape of a cupcake here. What we're doing is excavating down here a few feet, basically making a flat little plateau there. The fill material that's being generated here is what's supporting the driveway on this side. So we're taking fill from one side of the hill and creating that terrace. So this will be a fairly flat area all up through here.
So it's actually going to reduce the runoff if because you're terracing
Right,
it
but you're
out.
taking the canopies out.
Right. Oh,
Right.
that's true too. Yeah.
But what we've shown is that these dry wells are basically remediating all of that. And so that the end result, in other words, post-construction, they'd be the same little to no runoff at all from this site.
What is your grade on the back of the house heading from the side over that way? So from here to there, where that other
From the
drainage
edge of the
is?
house
Yep.
here, we've got a 91 contour, and we're at 95 by the property line. So a 4-foot rise over 32 feet.
And what is the cut? How much are you cutting out?
And the cut is a 95 down to a 91, so there's 4 feet of cut
feet,
right
okay.
in there. And again, that gets less as we
So
come
you're
this
going
way.
over, okay.
Oh, and maybe tell us how many trees you are going to have to cut down, because it's pretty, like it's a forest, pretty large trees there.
There are large trees there, but as you noticed, they're not so tight that you couldn't, as we've done, bring a backhoe in through there and go in between all the
Yeah,
trees.
there's
So
a
there
little
are
space.
areas, and what we talked about on the site is that basically this whole area that we're describing as being constructed here, that would have the trees taken out. There's a possibility that some of the trees in here, because there's no grading, no components being placed there could be some trees remaining here, as well as up in this area here, there might be some trees. And of course, it's their interest also to landscape this, maybe placing a couple trees in here. We've even shown with this terraced area here, we want to put a little green back in there with some shrubbery as well.
Define terraced. Terraced as in it's stepping down, or it's going to be
It's-
boulders
it's-
where nothing's ever going to grow.
It is intended to be, it is a boulder wall followed by another boulder wall, and there's the intention to have a shelf in there, and that's where these plantings would be.
So not like a mowed grass area.
Not at all.
Not like a bocce court.
Nope.
And it's mostly, from what I recall, white pine.
Which, if you've ever lived under
Have
a
you
white
thought of
pine,
Have you thought of plantings in that area? I mean, for erosion, but for
in this area
Yeah.
here,
Mhm.
in terms of the types of species,
Okay.
I didn't think of anything specifically.
Amy, thoughts on the site?
Are you on the, how far away from the 50 are you? Or are you right on the 50?
The what was asked for at the last meeting was this is the closest proximity of any activity to that 50. So we're probably around 60 feet there. The rest of the activity is more than that from the 50.
You'd have to look at plantings because you are taking out a significant portion of within the 100.
Could I suggest, on the order of conditions, maybe a list of 3 or 4 plants that you'd be pleased with to see on the terrace like that?
Right, but I think you're going to have to, in terms of planting some more substantial trees, not just plantings, but throughout the property, if you can locate where you might put some of those if they're feasible.
Or understory, so they won't fall in the house, like dogwood.
How tall are the pines?
Very.
Oh,
Very
Time.
tall.
I mean, you're not going to replace those.
No.
No, I'm not asking to replace those. No, but just something that would add
I'd
some
have to see
shade
them come
on the
down
wetland
Bruce
side.
Street. Just time.
Because you're grading right down to the 50.
no, we're not.
So, is your red you're stopping? So
red is the
these are
stop.
just contours then?
Yes, those are
Okay.
all contours, existing contours.
So is the red the boundary of the
The
tree
red,
removal
I
too?
usually
Or
think of
some-
the siltation barrier as red. In other words, this is where everything
The stop
stops.
line,
Also
sure.
the limit of work area, so that's why I
Okay.
always color it red.
I'm just thinking about
Once you
too,
disturb, that takes some
removing,
pine out, then
you
they
know,
start
trees,
getting weak.
you know, on the slope, you know, from an erosion standpoint. Are you going to restore the site with grass or gardens or with, has
Those
that been decided?
Those type of areas are just very minimal. Like in through here would probably just be a loam and seeded.
Sure, next to the house, but talking about like down here, and I guess that's the well, right?
Yes, that's the well. So again, we're not touching anything outside the red line.
Okay. So the trees are staying between the red and the 50?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, it's your grandmother in the house, right? So,
No, it'd be my parents.
oh, your parents. Are you keeping it fairly wooded and not something that they need to take care of, or?
Yeah, we'd like to disturb as little as possible. What we have to disturb is in conjunction with making the construction appropriate and not having any issues with trees being so close to the final construction that we're going to have problems down the road with potential.
I mean, it's
Maybe
going to
we
be
could-
very difficult to try and mitigate the trees.
They could do understory plants, maybe, like transitional understory plants. Or
You'd have to at least denote the area that you're going to do that planting though.
Yeah.
Like the ones that we just did over Meadowanakie. I mean, we've had some good planting plans come in just for suggestions that they could use.
Well, the only thing I want to add is the Paradises live down over here. They were the subject of a hearing a number of years ago. They take very good care of their property, and as Diana said, this is for her parents, so they're going to be looking after this the same way they look after their own property, and I would hope that that would speak for itself. In terms of plantings and trees, again, for the sake of moving things along, is it an important enough issue that you need, as Sarah, you just said, it delineated on a plan and itemized, or can we commit to putting in, say, 3 to 4 smaller trees and some shrubbery in the area as appropriate around the house?
I think you could verbally commit tonight, and then it could be referenced in the order of conditions.
Okay.
If
Because I think that's my client's goals. They want to make this a very nice place. I want to say a showpiece, but again, budget considerations as well.
Well, I think we have to be conscious of the wetlands vegetation that's being removed and how we can bring something back that would help. We talk a lot about pollinators and here, so to try and work through that, not just a tree or something like
Habitat
that.
replacement, like valuable habitat replacement, you know, for the trees, such as like serviceberry is a nice shrub-sized, you know, shrub.
small tree.
Small
yeah, it grows
tree,
to small.
Something
and it's
that-
valuable for habitat.
Free
It's pretty.
birds.
It flowers.
We would
you
welcome
know, so-
suggestions, so if
Yeah.
you all have specific suggestions,
So I
we
think
haven't
just
spoken with the
thinking about
architect or
that.
the landscape
Yep.
folks
Yeah.
about any of that, so if there are certain things, and we'd rather plant stuff that would
Native, I guess,
encourage,
is
yeah,
really
native,
native.
and
We want to try
Yeah,
and
nothing
empower
out of-
food.
You know,
out of place and something that would, you know,
It's probably pretty acidic
we like the
soil.
critters, so.
So
Yeah, with the pine.
acid-loving
Yeah,
things.
Yeah.
are you gonna like your topsoil? Are you trucking any soil in from anywhere?
conditions.
gonna have to do that.
Again, we're hoping,
Topsoil?
and we talked
Hoping
about
not
this
to.
on the site walk, is
Yeah.
that we're hoping that this is a fairly close
cut and
balance
fill,
between
you'll be
cut and
alright.
fill.
But I guess my one concern
Will be
is
acidic.
if you need to bring, well, if it's acidic and you find you need to bring topsoil on, making sure you don't have introduce like knotweed into the area,
Right,
or
that it's actually
especially
good soil that
if
doesn't have
there's,
something invasive in it.
like if, you know, like the highway department or something is doing something here, you know, you can clear stuff around. So that would be my main concern. Where's the turnout? Is that already on here, or is that?
The turnout for the shared driveway?
Yeah.
That's this widened part here.
Oh, so it's already there.
Yes. The driveway has existed for years.
Right, okay. I thought you mentioned turnout, so I didn't know if it was gonna change.
Right. I was pointing out where it was in relation to that tree.
Okay. So it's really just taking out the tree, it's not
Mhm.
bringing in more like soils or anything?
No.
I'd like to make a motion to issue an NOI, to, where are we?
Cricket Lane.
Are we on Cricket Lane?
We did this one.
Yeah, 204-887.
Cricket Lane, U46-3C, Mass DEP 204-887, contingent on also adding a condition of adding at least 3 trees or smaller trees and various shrubs to replace the wetland vegetation that's being removed.
So 3 trees, so
3 or more.
No, not wetland vegetation, the
Yeah,
trees.
yeah, so 3
All the
trees and
understory
understory
Buffer
plantings.
zone.
Do you want to come up with a number?
Buffer zone
I
plantings.
think that's what Amy's looking for, is something that we can hold the order of conditions to.
At least 3.
Yeah.
At least,
well, 3 or
at
more
least
trees and
3.
6 shrubs.
At least 6
And you
shrubs.
just might
A
have
minimal.
foundation plantings,
A
yeah.
minimum of.
Minimum of 6 shrubs.
Yeah, I would put like pollinator type of species, or
Native.
Yeah, I
it's just
know.
not.
And this is in addition to what's happening in that terraced
Yes,
area.
in
Correct.
addition to
Yeah.
terrace.
Yep. Okay.
And if soil is needed to be brought to the site, ensuring that, and your parents don't want invasives on their property anyways, knotweed will pop up through your driveway and
They don't want
whatnot,
anything
so.
that they have to maintain, because I'm gonna have to maintain.
Yeah, no, it's really in your best interest to
Yeah.
make sure if you have soil brought to the site that it doesn't have invasive species,
Yep.
because they.
So is that good?
Yeah,
That's really.
that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you have
Second
any
it.
suggestions.
All
about
those in favor?
specific
Aye.
plantings.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you very
Dan.
much. And
Thank you.
Amy, I have
Yep.
2 copies of
Public hearing, notice of intent, 3 Westchester Drive, U15740, Mass DEP, file number 204-890, reconstruction of a single-family home with attached garage and new septic system. Somebody want to speak to that?
Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
My name is Matt Marrow. You spell my last name M-A-R-R-O. I'm representing the applicant, Kyle Mann.
Who's getting married shortly.
We're getting married shortly. Okay, so what we have here, we have Westchester Drive. We have an existing single-family home that's currently outlined in a lighter shade. That home was in pretty rough shape when he got it. Septic system was essentially non-existent. The proposal is to take the single-family home down, take the septic system out of this area here, essentially put it in the front of the yard. All the perk testing with the Board of Health and all the arrangements on that have been done. What you have in green is the limit of the 100-foot buffer zone.
If there are audience members looking at this, you can come watch. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, no problem. There was a BVW system here, a BVW system here. The 50-foot zone basically combines to meet up with both of them. There was an interruption here. There was the BVW system across the street, which was accounted for within the 100-foot buffer zone. There's no 50-foot buffer zone associated with that here. All of the work, with the exception of the demolition of the existing septic system, is out of the 50-foot. There was a waiver being sought to eliminate the septic system here. The existing condition of this area is lawn. It will remain as lawn. There are no trees that will be taken down within the 50-foot zone. or any changes in the tree cover whatsoever. That will remain exactly the same.
Okay, square footage of the house that is existing versus proposed.
That number I don't have. Hal, do you know that number?
How much is it increasing? Is it increasing the footprint?
Is the existing the dashed hash
The existing is the
mark?
hash mark.
Okay. Looks smaller.
It actually, well, I mean, you've got the garage here, so it looks just a tad smaller or close to being around the same.
I think it's going taller though, right? Because the
You're adding
existing
another
is.
That is
Sure.
correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. Top of floor is going to be, or top of ceiling is going to be a lot higher.
So how tall is the proposed house versus what's there now?
Well, this is going to be,
I'm listed in actually.
Go
I'm
ahead.
Kyle Mann. Yeah. So this is, so the proposed house is going to be Cape style, just the same as the house is there. The only reason for the change in elevation is because of the new septic system is required to be elevated. So foundation elevated, just the same as every other house in that neighborhood.
right.
So that's the reason for the elevation change. But I am keeping Cape style, so it's going to be built into the shed roof. It's not going to be
Is it a
colonial.
3-bedroom system?
Yes, which I actually took a 4-bedroom. This property is deeded 4-bedroom, but we felt that this would fit better, so I reduced the property to a 3-bedroom.
Right.
As far as I don't have the exact square footage, but the new box is smaller. The
Okay.
footprint is smaller than existing.
Yeah,
I don't
it
know
looks to be
exactly how
slightly
much.
smaller.
How shallow is groundwater?
Groundwater
really-
is at
it's really
18 inches.
shallow.
Yeah. It was pretty
shallow.
pretty high groundwater.
No.
Has one car garage.
It's going to be a
That's here.
22-foot wide garage.
The erosion protection is proposed in the form of wattles and silt fence going around the perimeter of work, protecting the wetland resource
Are we
area.
going to accommodate dewatering?
So we have this stone trench running from exactly outside the 50-foot buffer by a foot down the whole edge of the property to gather the runoff from the roof.
No, when you're during construction, because you're going to hit water. What are you going to do during construction?
I'm not gonna do construction for at least another month. Groundwater's not a concern of mine at that point. I've worked a lot in the area, so.
You're definitely going to get
Regardless, it has to be on the plan, so you have to come up with just how and where. So if and when
Where's
it
the water
does
gonna
happen,
go?
because you have such high groundwater, you just have to plan for it, whether you use it or not.
Okay,
It doesn't matter. We just have to
You
figure out.
need a dewatering plan. The groundwater is very high there.
Yeah, 18 inches.
Right.
So we don't have a plan for that yet at this point. Didn't think of that because I'm not planning on doing construction where I'll have to deal with water because I'm so familiar with working in the neighborhood. But
So you run the risk of, say you start it and there's water, you would have to wait for the water to go down every single time. So you would not be allowed to dewater.
You wouldn't be allowed to discharge your water in here.
So
You'd have
all
to
we're
stay
saying is
on
it's better to
site.
make accommodations for it now.
If I
not,
may.
you wouldn't be able to do it.
If I may, we could do it after the septic system. We could eliminate the septic system here first. After that is done, we could do a dewatering sump here with erosion protection around it, and that way you would have something that would be retained. If it overflowed, which it probably will, it would have to go through silt fence and wattles in order for it to be done.
I think there's a house really close right
There's
here
a house
too.
here.
So how do you prevent your dewatering water from going off towards the house next door?
Well, you're going to have
And you're
wattles and
collecting
silt.
that.
You're going to have wattles and silt
But the
fence here.
water's still going to go there.
Well, everything's
It's
going to have to be.
filtered, but
That's why the sump. Everything's going to have to be directed up this way.
into the
You've-
wetland.
Yeah. Well, you've got wetland here, wetland here, wetland here.
Yeah,
wetland
no,
here.
I walked the site, I'm very familiar
If
with
you
the site.
build that and it overflows and brings silt down into the wetland, you're gonna have problems.
But he's saying it's overflowing the
If it
wattles.
overflows, which
Right, the wattles are just
'Cause
going
he's saying
to
the wattles
filter.
are-
it's gonna be the same issue.
And the
as
groundwater's
the
already
Well, you're
really
gonna
high,
wind
and
up
they're
with
going
two
towards the
sections of-
wetlands, so
you're
the
gonna wind up with
groundwater's
two
even
sections of
there's
silt
no
fence.
capacity for
And an area in
dewatering. The
between.
foundations,
Yeah, but you
there's
still
socks.
run
You
the
can have
potential of
socks and
silt going down
prepared for
towards
it.
the wetland.
and water,
No
I'm
matter
concerned.
what you possibly did, you probably run into the possibility of that happening.
Yeah, but we got a plan for it because we don't
Yeah,
want we don't want it to
that's-
happen.
that's
Because if it happens,
So
you
that's what
get
we're trying to come up with.
shut down, so we don't want that to happen,
And
so
we're
you
trying
need
to
to plan
we're trying
ahead.
to eliminate. We don't want that
And-
to happen.
So yeah, so what we're proposing is just that we'll have a stone area here, wattles around it. We'll have the secondary wattles. I could put hay bales as well, silt fence, fabric, you know.
Actually, hay bales would probably make a better barrier than the wattles.
I can wrap the hay bales with fabric, and that'll gather silt as well.
I'm worried about water capacity, though. I'm just concerned. You're just
Well, right
gonna
now,
make
this
pond
wetlands
area.
handles all 3 of these neighbors' sump pumps, so it's going to eventually have to handle, you know, a little bit more water.
You're gonna run into water
'Cause
capacity no matter.
Foundation dewatering is different
We're
from.
talking
Not in-
Static
not in this-
static foundation drain is very different from foundation during construction. Like, how deep is
Not
the
in this
foundation?
area. In this area, actually, these sump pumps run pretty much 24/7.
Exactly, because groundwater is high.
Julie's concerned about the construction that's gonna be happening, and then you get the high water, and the water starts, and
You have to pump it so
everything
you can
starts
work.
flowing.
Right, and it's dirt.
Yeah, I'm
so it's
very
dirty, so
familiar
we
with
gotta
that.
clean
Right,
it
so what are you
before it
gonna
goes.
Yeah, so
do
that's
with it?
that's what we had just discussed about here. Do you have a better suggestion of something that may work better than what we
This is
proposed?
not my project.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's what we'll propose. We'll propose stone with
My
fabric,
concern
hay bales.
is, have you done calculations to determine that you have capacity for the volume of water that's going to be needed to be pumped out of the foundation? Like, you know, the square of your foundation, assuming that groundwater, let's say it
The
goes
answer
down
to that
half a
question is
foot.
no. We've
Okay,
done no
so,
calculations because we're not sure.
So I think we
If
need
I
to
dig in
see
the middle of
some-
July, there's more than likely going to be no water in this hole whatsoever at all because I've dug in July in this neighborhood
But
constantly.
didn't you say their foundation drains are always going?
Well, not in July.
They're not
so
going in
I was
July.
wrong. Yeah.
When
Just 1 month.
And I'm not going to be digging
Last
down.
July was the wettest July.
I'm also only digging 4-foot frost walls where the neighbors' basements are much deeper in the ground than that. I'm going to have a slab on grade. There's no basement in this
When were
property.
your test holes done? What season?
So we dug 2 different times, one this spring and last fall as well.
I mean, I mean, the water from the holes are gonna go toward the wetland anyway, so I don't know.
You're gonna clean it.
But, and I think
But they
I'm
said-
concerned it's too much water and it's gonna create like a pond at the corner of the property, and there's a house like right here that's gonna get water.
Going that direction.
The house is right there. I'm just concerned about the capacity and what's the plan for the capacity because it's sloping.
Sloping?
The
No,
water is very
this
flat.
area
It's
is
very-
flat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty flat.
It's pretty flat, but it does, I think, is there an existing swale here? Like, I feel like the
There
water's
is.
gonna go kind of this way because I felt like this was a little higher.
Yeah, wasn't? Oh, well, maybe I'm thinking.
There's-
of
Because
There's
this
no-
house is way up a hill.
There's
like-
no swale.
Honestly,
Yeah.
honestly, for the flow purposes, regardless, it's not that steep of a slope
I
without
think the challenge
dramatically
is
is
that
that
it's
make that
it's,
much
calculated.
of a
it's
difference.
altered, and we
Yeah.
just have to make sure that the water
Still
that
put
is
it away.
going
Yeah.
is going
Yeah,
to
the
be
septic plan's approved by the Board of Health.
clear,
Mm-hmm.
and that,
We've had this issue too many times. We don't want to have it again. It's
I mean, you can bring in socks that can hold the water, and it can do a slow release. I mean, there's certainly engineering options that all you have to do is, acknowledge them and put them on the plan.
I think we need
so
some
that-
calculations, though. I
so
don't
that
think
you-
we can
so that
just
you know-
calculate.
say to stick hay bales and socks out.
You need the calculations.
For construction dewatering?
So,
Cleaner.
so what are these calculations that you suggest? So I'll have to figure out exactly how big my frost walls are going to be in this hole, and maybe plan for potential cave-ins as well. Assume the groundwater is going to be at 18 inches in the middle of the summer, and then plan for dewatering of a hole that very possibly will not have any water in it. Rather than, we can see
What are you
maybe.
gonna do with the hole if it rains? Do you need to pump the water out?
No, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna dig this hole. I'm gonna have the footings put in there the next day, pour the walls and backfill the next day, and I will plan for a time with no rain.
I think that the challenge that we have, and it's not necessarily in this area, that we, throughout the town, have construction areas that, especially in the summer, they're filling up with water. Like say in Best Faith, you dig today, you want to work tomorrow, you get a July storm, and then you're sitting and waiting. We just want to make sure that the water has an opportunity to.
So if that happens and the hole fills up with water, and there's too much water in this hole, I will have a Vector truck come and clean that hole out.
So that's an option. You just have to state that.
Okay.
So you know what I mean?
All
So
right.
it's basically you just coming up with a sequence of here's in a perfect world what I'd like to do, and then here are your sequences to do that. Like some people bring in, socks or things like that. So,
Right.
but we can't tell you what to do. You have to be able to say, in this type of scenario, this is what I would do.
So I'll have to do this and then come back to another meeting to go over that.
Well, your top of floor here is 103.5, right? That's your top of basement floor.
Yeah, that's the top of. It's going to be that's top of concrete. So the garage slab's 99.5. This will be the top of to retain the septic system. So there'll be a step in the foundation there. The house is a split design, so
All right.
Okay, so actually you're kind of building it above groundwater.
the whole floor will be above ground.
The whole
water.
floor will be above groundwater.
Yes.
Okay.
So it sounds like you still got a little bit left to engineer yet.
Well, yeah, I think if we do
Because
the
of construction
calculations
purposes?
based on looking at the top of floor,
Mhm.
I don't think it's going to be much of an issue because even with the shallow depth, it's being built above the shallow depth by about 1.5 feet above. You've got 18 inches to groundwater. Your elevation's averaging about 90.
Right. And so,
Yeah, so in this
we
construction-
recognize that,
Doors up.
and we hope that you don't have to dewater, but you still have to plan for it, is what we're
Mhm.
saying. So, and the plan that you've submitted just doesn't account for that today without calculations that support that. So, this is what we ask of everyone that has a high water table. So we meet again right in 2 weeks, so.
Who delineated the wetland?
I did.
Are you certified?
I'm a wetland scientist with 32 years experience.
Okay, just wondering.
Nope, no
Good.
problem.
I
Feel free to ask.
didn't see.
I have no problem.
And
I
There was a
didn't-
report
I went
enclosed
out
with
and
the
checked the
NOI.
flags also. The flags across the street, someone else had also put them up, so everybody was in agreement, and then the flags on this side were new.
What's the closest point of the house to the wetland?
52 feet, and that's the garage. That's a
But I'm
corner of the
taking a
garage
failed
here.
septic system out of the buffer. I'm reducing the
So
flow
you're meeting
from
the
4
waiver
bedrooms to
by
3
doing that.
bedrooms.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
Because he's upgrading.
and during this construction, I have to have 4-foot walls. It'd be, in the front, I'll be digging down maybe 24 inches. The only wall that's going to be more than 2 feet in the ground is this back area here.
So if you're digging 24 inches and your groundwater is at, what was it at? 18, you're gonna hit water.
He's saying in
it-
I'm not
July,
gonna
because
hit water.
is it
well,
18?
if it's a wet season.
The elevation of the concern,
So-
I'm sorry.
Okay, so we have to keep going. We have a full evening, so if you'd like to continue, we meet again in 2 weeks.
2 weeks is fine.
Yeah.
We should be able to settle that rather easily.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, just come up with
I'll just
the.
talk
So do you
with,
just want, do you order and plan, or do you want calcs with it
We need some
as well? I
calculations.
guess if you're buying it, then,
I'm
yeah,
baffled by it. I have no idea.
In order to know
to
the
size
volume, you need to know the water volume.
The
which
size of
means
receiving
if
pit,
you
if there's
right.
Well, we will never be able to know the water. Why would we base the water volume off 18? That's the estimated high groundwater.
That's not what you measured?
That estimated is not where the water was. So estimated is where it could have been 125 years ago.
No. Okay.
Yes.
Tell me.
This is what I do every day.
That's not what I'm asking you. I am asking you, how do you know where groundwater is? And I thought the answer was
Because I hired
you
an
tested
engineer.
it twice. So I'm asking you, what's
It's
the
based off
level?
modeling, not where the water was coming in.
So you didn't dig. You don't have a hole.
No,
that
the
says where
estimated
the
high
water is.
groundwater is based off
Estimated
modeling.
seasonal
not-
high groundwater is based on modeling in the
Okay.
soils, it's not based on
I
observation
thought.
of
Okay.
groundwater.
I thought we had an actual two observations.
Sometimes
We saw
they'll
what-
usually
when we
have it
dug
with
in-
a high water mark, if they see water when they dig it, they'll mark that.
Right.
But the seasonal high is.
So here, we
So I thought
observed.
you did test pits and observed water.
Yeah, we
because you
observed
had to do a
groundwater at
septic
42
system.
inches.
I assumed you saw water.
Right here, we
So
observed
that was my
groundwater at
question.
42 inches.
Okay, so that
Yeah.
is
So that's much deeper
vastly
than I will be digging. So
different
should I base my calculations off of that?
then.
No, what we're saying is that what you represented was that we understood that you saw water at that.
Oh, okay,
What
so-
you
I
I think
stated,
we
18.
misunderstood.
Yeah, so
the
I'm
question was
talking about
That's what-
just
misunderstood.
that's
Definitely
what
what
stated.
was represented.
So I'm talking about.
That's what we
So
misunderstood
can you
the question.
understand now if we think you're digging a foundation and groundwater's at 18
So
inches?
the fact that the observed groundwater was lower than my footing height, then the dewatering is a non-issue.
You still have to have a, I don't think you have to do the calculations, but you still have to at least note what you're going to do if you have to dewater. So I don't think you have to do
rainwater
the.
too. Rainwater
Because
counts.
we've got
Any water
some
you
water
pull out
this
of your
spring, so who knows where it's at.
Well, it's more than, because you're going to build in the summer.
Yeah.
You basically put a performance standard on it that if they're pumping into the receiving pit and the receiving pit is full, you stop, you're shut down.
You can't pump anymore.
You don't have to go size it.
Because you got to keep it on site,
Or
so.
you take the water off site
Yep.
with a truck.
which you stated. So it's basically you have
Can I-
your sequence.
Right on here with a Sharpie that I'll pull the water out with a back. We don't have to come up with any dewatering. If there's water in the hole, I'll have a Vector truck pull it out. I won't dewater at all. Because
You could
there's-
put that in an order of conditions.
That
Yeah,
would be your order of conditions.
I'm so confident
Yeah.
that there is going to be no water that if there is, I will hire a Vector truck to Vector it out, and
That
then that
actually
way,
would take care of all of our issues
Fine.
right on the
Write it
spot.
in. Your engineer's here, so you're lucky.
perfect.
Okay.
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 Are there
If they
any
have
public
anybody-
comments or questions from the audience?
Okay. So if you write that
John
in.
Clark, 9 Westchester Drive. I've been in town 10 years. I'm a direct abutter the property. As a general matter, the neighborhood's in support of renovation that's proposed. In fact, the
Did you
house.
want to come up and just want to point
I don't want to look at it. You sent me a very nice copy in the mail. Thank you. And I wanted to thank actually members of the committee as well for coming out to the property and being very open to questions and giving your contact information as well. The only feedback we had at that point, and Mr. Malo was very open to answering questions about it, was just the grading and kind of the drainage issue. And I feel like that they're working to resolve those items.
You know, one of the things I do when I send out a butter
Just say,
notification
if,
on a plan like this
if
where it's
dewatering
relatively
needs to
straightforward,
occur,
I'll send out a mini
all water will be
of the plan along with
removed.
my email address if somebody wants a PDF of the application. They can have it.
Transparent.
Yeah. So
Well, I
he's,
mean, I
he's
have
writing
them-
that into the
I
plan
have them
now.
email my
so
wife actually. She's the organizer.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Will be removed by.
So by Vector truck.
Yep. Okay. So I move that we issue a order of conditions with the updated plan as amended for notice of intent 3 Westchester.
And
DEP. Does this have a DEP number?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
890.
204-890.
And a waiver, she said.
And a waiver because we're upgrading the failed septic system.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye. Okay.
Sorry for the confusion with the groundwater. I
That's
was
all right.
I was thinking the
You
way
see-
I always think
you
of
see
it.
You see our point though?
Yeah.
Okay.
So can you peel off that top plan and leave that
Yep.
for me?
Okay. Thank you.
You have another.
See, Mike, you open it by the end of the night. There's a big stack here.
Thank you. Yep. I'll give you a call when I'm done. There you go.
Okay, continued discussion, potential wetland violation, 5 Scott Road.
Turn into the field.
I'm still here for that. I figured you guys didn't get enough from me on the last one.
Alright. Any plans, photos?
That's what you think.
I'm in the middle of doing the analysis. I wanted to go over it with the commission before I completed my analysis. Obviously, I've had a lot of interruption because of the rains.
Okay.
What project says?
Wrong.
Oh, do we announce it?
Mm-hmm. He
This
did.
is
Yeah.
the 5 Scott Road.
Yep. No, it was announced. Jim announced
Okay,
it.
I missed it, sorry.
Okay. So you're
My
representing.
client, I'm representing Peter Scott, the owner
Yep.
of the property. I walked it with some of the commission members a while back in between rain events.
Yep.
Essentially what we have is the commission, believe you had, did you have an enforcement order on this one? Or was it just a violation notice?
There's not an enforcement order yet.
So essentially what we have is Mr. Scott apparently went into the buffer zone. I'm going down into the back end of the area by the pond. I did review historical photos. There's been no filling of water or anything like that. The shape of what's out there now is essentially the same shape as has been out there for at least the last 5 years. So I'm going out on site, I'm doing a ground analysis of what's out there. If there is any fill material, I will have it itemized as far as square footage, volume, and any type of remediation that may be necessary under the act in your bylaw. It's been taking me a little time because, I'm sorry, what was that?
No, I was just asking a question. Okay, carry on.
Well, the area out there wasn't like a wooded lot where trees were removed. It's been a border of a ponded area, and I'm going to have to do a more in-depth analysis than what I've been able to do right now. Again, I've been kind of tied up because of the wet weather.
But we did notice some fresh sloughing off down that really steep area.
Well, that's
to the right of the
going to have to
driveway.
be attenuated. I've been speaking to my client about different ideas on how to attenuate that. I can be back in a couple of weeks with more updated information for the commission. Should be able to complete my volume measurements now that the weather's dried out a little bit, and it's actually a good time of year because any vegetation that grows, from the ground is going to be more visible. Whereas when we went, it was basically the tail end of winter, beginning of spring. There really wasn't anything around. So this is going to be the beginning of a process. I wanted to talk to you guys about it if there was anything specific that you wanted from me in reporting format.
Are there any photos in the file?
This is from last June 21st.
I was going to say, anything else you want me to pass on for you?
That
We
was
only had a
pretty
series of
fresh.
photos, didn't we?
It's certainly been reworked on the top.
Yeah.
Here's a bunch of different aerial photographs, or assorted use. I think that was probably in there too.
Is that one from the Oliver too? Did you get those
Yes.
from Oliver? Or- yeah.
When you look at historic aerial data, you look back under ownership, so you go back more than 3 years, 5 years. So the owner of property, so like if I own something for 20 years, you can go back, aerial's 20 years.
Mhm.
So go back to the original when the house was built.
I can do that, absolutely.
We meet again in 2 weeks, so you'll need to have it in within 2 weeks, or there'll be an enforcement order. So, but that'll also, you want to take into account if there's any erosion that's going on now, that siltation or erosion control, those things are in effect immediately.
I mean, as the commissioner had mentioned, there was some sloughing off, but there's been nothing that's been silting into the wet area. So, I mean, it's been okay.
I recall when we talked about this, I guess back in the fall, that erosion was supposed to be installed at that point, like hay bales and such.
I really don't know. I've actually just been brought
There
on.
are models in there.
Okay.
These are actually pictures from the April 12th sidewalk,
Okay.
which you passed with me.
As far as what happened, as far as what the commission put out for directors prior, I wasn't here.
Right, no,
I've been
I'm
since
just
retained.
asking, I
Nope,
haven't
and
been
that's
out,
fine.
so I'm just asking current conditions. I know there was a conversation in the past about erosion
Yeah,
control.
I mean, I walked out there and I didn't see anything that screamed to me that we were going to have some imminent problems with erosion and gullying or anything like that. So I've been focusing more on, estimating what's out there, what's underneath the ground,
Existing conditions.
existing, and seeing what I could come up from historical.
Okay, so you have no concerns if you get like a 2-inch downpour or nothing?
Honestly, we've had 2-inch downpours and
And
I've
so
gone
it's
out there
okay?
and nothing's gone in.
Okay.
How many
That's
times have you been on site?
I have to look at my logs, but you're probably talking about between 7 and 10 times.
So usually we
The
ask,
and the photographs from April show the material that's falling down around that tree trunk.
Yeah.
Is I think one of your first photos.
Yeah, like I said, I wasn't saying that there wasn't any sloughing. There is, but there's no imminent danger to the resource area right now.
but you have to
Well, if a
recognize that has
tree-
to come out, so whatever's gone in has to come out.
Well, this is
If
going to
it's
be
from
part of a
restoration.
restoration effort, so yes, I do.
Could be damaged by that.
Yes, Peter.
There you go.
Hi, how are you? The place you're talking about is behind the retaining wall that was installed 25 years ago. And Robert Chapin had come out a number of times. And what happens is the water comes off the house, comes off to the back, and flows over the back. It gets in the backside of the retaining wall.
And that
grows
was put in
in,
25
if we
years
get
ago.
a very large storm, it washes down to that one little tiny area. I fill it back in behind the retaining wall, because I can't afford to use my.
That wasn't done 25 years ago.
And Barbara said just repair it as
No,
necessary.
that's fresh trash.
Sorry,
And it's been
it's
pretty good. It's really been great. I put the wattles in, and there's nothing going into any of the wetlands. It's my botanist is the best. It's, after all this rain we've had, it's in fantastic condition. So I prefer to end. I just want to let you know that small area that you're speaking about is really not very much there. As far as, otherwise the tree would be dead by now.
So are you the butter? I didn't hear.
No, I'm the owner.
He's the owner.
Oh, the owner.
I'm with 5 Star Road, pain in the ass. I said that out loud, right? Sorry.
Okay, so you're a work in progress, basically.
It's going to be a lot of work here, and I can have a good update for you guys in a couple of weeks, but it's going to be a lot of work. I mean,
So
not,
It's been almost a year.
I think,
so-
yeah, I honestly, it has been almost a year. I think, recognizing that, we've gotten a lot of rain, we would like to give you a chance to do your existing conditions.
and I appreciate that.
But, it's been a year, and I really think we're looking at enforcement without substantial progress.
Nope, totally understandable. I mean, I have it on the site. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything, and you guys have given me some valuable information.
No, understood.
That's a big help.
Yeah, especially the road down to the peninsula needs to be stabilized.
Well, it needs to get renaturalized is what it needs to be done.
Renaturalized and stabilized, yeah. That tree is going to be harmed. The one that's
It's
now
like buried.
submerged. I
Yeah,
don't know how much
buried right
silt
in
is
the soil.
built up around the trunk, but it's going to rot if that soil isn't removed around the trunk.
Nope, understood.
And I know you're a wetlands scientist. This is part of your purview of doing these restoration projects.
Yeah, I'm actually working on one in Worcester right now. Really weird one.
Okay, so we just want to be clear that we meet again in 2 weeks. And so the expectation is that that'll be done. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good night, guys.
You
Thanks.
too, thanks.
Okay, request for extension permit and continued discussion. The Point, Mass DEP number 204-430.
Sorry, didn't mean to be in your way.
No problem.
Easel or on the table?
Thanks again,
Table.
guys.
Just check. Good. Okay, hello again. Tim Power, Land Strategies. I'm just trying to sort of pick up where we left off.
I should introduce myself as well. My name is Steve Ivis Environmental. I'm a professional wetland scientist. I've got a master's in resource management and administration, and I'm the conservation agent part-time in 2 jurisdictions, just for your information.
We've retained Steve as our new sort of oversight of the order conditions on this property hopefully until closure and sign off.
Stefan's very happy that you're there.
Oh, good.
As am I.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. That's very kind.
So since the last meeting, I went out on site last week and kind of came up with a shopping list of things in addition to when Amy was out, and my recollection of working with Tim last week of going through some of the plans, in particular to this area that we thought was potentially a sensitive area in terms of dewatering, and felt as though, and Tim will walk us through some of the options. We are looking at favorable conditions to do the work, however, planning for a lot of water. So we've looked at various dewatering methods and feel as though, based on the last round of remodeling, that we're in a much better place than what we were a couple weeks ago. Do you want to kind of walk through?
Sure.
that?
I'll go through the design and.
So what's
see-
existing and what we're adding, or what we're
Sure.
doing?
If anyone wants a handout, I do. have
And this is
handouts.
behind Market
Why don't we,
Basket.
why don't we-
Sure, I'd like a handout.
This is exactly the plan we're looking at on the board too, so.
Here, let me hand out some more, just in case people want to take a look, okay?
So,
See that?
where we are here in gray, and this black square is, for anyone who's been out there, the black square is the little tiny building of the treatment plant, and the gray boxes are the underground tanks. We are, as presented before, we're sort of building a not quite mirror image, but similar image of what's there today, with a series of tanks, and then we're going to expand the building to about double in size. This area is depressed from the shopping center pad, about 4 feet, 6 feet,
Something
6
like,
feet.
I would say 6 feet.
Yeah. And the approach they're going to take with the tanks is that they're going to excavate the first 4 feet of soil where all the tanks and disturbance is. The tanks then go down another, I don't know, another 4, maybe 6 feet. I have to check the elevation. So they're going to dig down, put the tank in, and backfill up again to that, call it -4 elevation. At that time, when all the tanks are in, then they'll start their plumbing and connect all the pipes. These are all interconnected. So during that time, the concern was there may be some, we may see some water, may see some, water, either surface flow or groundwater coming in, just typical dewatering situations. And what we've come up with, sort of advanced to at this point, is that we will set up a dewatering system, a typical sump in each excavation with the pump, and when they do the excavation, to pull any groundwater out. And then we'll create a sort of a discharge basin, really sort of a long and narrow rather than big round open one to discharge to. At the head of that, we'll have it pumped directly into a flocking station to immediately capture any sediment that's there, a series of check dams, and then from there we'll have a secondary pump for what's hopefully clear water. When it's clear, we'll pump out into some existing drainage structures, which tie into one of these is a water quality unit that I'm not sure if it is a storm scepter, but it's that type of sediment separator, which discharges to existing riprap spillway down to actually a little bit of upland between the 50 and 100-foot buffer before it gets to the wetlands that's there.
And then we also have an additional area that we can add flock logs up on, coming down the slope if we need to add it
Right.
again there as well. So there's
Correct.
a lot of capacity for cleaning.
And we should define the wetland resource areas, of course. This wetland resource, this was perfectly positioned to be as far away from wetlands as possible. Very nicely done, by the way.
Thanks.
In
hindsight.
in the early days.
I'm sure we all had input into that as well.
I'm sure you do.
Including Amy.
No, seriously though, that's a really good thing.
Right,
Because
that's
if
why
you-
we're dewatering in that area,
If
not
you
in the
ever
back.
get anything down here, you can certainly go down with, shovels and buckets and rakes
Right.
and get it out.
You're still pretty far
So
from the
your
road.
BVW line is around here.
Yeah.
There's also a perimeter drain here, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Perimeter drain. It drains down to here, and it also takes some of the drainage from the wetland up, what I call the top of slope wetland, right up here.
And
which is-
parking as well. That's why we didn't want to use that area.
Exactly, and then it goes down into this there's a little swale down here
Yep. Agreed.
that it hits, which is smart because going over here is much better than using that, in my opinion.
So in addition to that, we'll have our typical just perimeter controls around there.
Erosion controls there, all the way around, and right here as well.
Yep. This is for, we don't expect much in the way of stockpiles, but if they bring in some stone or whatnot, we'll create an area up here that's protected by hay bales, but there shouldn't be large amounts of soil sitting there. It should sort of be live stockpile areas, if you will, for lack of a better term.
I think they've learned from their experience.
I think if we get into a wet situation, it may be an in and out and not a stockpile. So
Yep.
we'd be
Mhm.
careful of that. So
Yep.
That's fine. And I think also the nature of how they're approaching this, that we're digging the 4-foot holes, we have a little bit of extra capacity in the hole So we're not relying on just this as well, so.
Exactly.
Is this gonna be the biggest addition to the septic system? I mean,
This
it's
is
gonna
the
be-
last work in this area. We are maxed out our hydrogeology for capacity of our groundwater discharge, maxed it out, so we're doing the second phase of this plan all in one, and the next expansion of sewer will be when the town sewer comes by. So, whatever that may or may
When
not
it
be.
is.
Yeah, right.
And time frame on that, Tim?
So they're still, we've held a little bit on ordering the tanks. So we're still, at this point, 6 weeks from having the tanks delivered when we say go. We haven't said go yet. I imagine that will hopefully be next month as our goal. But this was one of the issues we wanted to make sure we had resolved. So then 6 weeks, the tanks will arrive, and they may start some excavation a little bit in advance of that. So maybe the end of June.
So the storm scepter type apparatus, is it just suspended solids it's gonna filter out?
Yeah, as I understand.
It's not like an oil water separator or
No,
anything?
no.
Just for construction.
Yeah, it's a gravity system.
But it's intended to filter out
Sediment.
Exactly.
basically,
Yeah.
so-
TSS, as much as possible, right? And it's already installed. It's already been
Yep.
installed. It was installed many years ago. How many years ago?
In the phase one construction, so
Okay.
2012, 13.
Sure.
Long time.
Yeah.
So you'll maintain it, what, like weekly or inspect it weekly?
I think Steve will be here during the
During the work.
critical paths during the work, and
Exactly.
he'll do our inspections, and if it needs cleaning, they'll look in the direction.
Do we have a sequence of when we would then go ahead and fill in your dewatering area?
So,
So that we just keep things going so that we're not leaving that open trench once you have those tanks in?
That's actually on top of the ground, right? We could go build it in concrete.
I was thinking we would excavate down about
Yeah,
2
we're gonna
feet.
2 feet,
excavate.
okay.
Yeah. So we just want to make sure we're not then creating a pool.
That stays there.
Right.
Sure.
So I would think that when they get backfilled up as they come here,
Mhm.
then we'll
Okay.
fill it in. And if at some point in time we feel they're out of the ground, we're not seeing water, and they want to start filling this in
Okay.
sooner, then we can. But
Okay.
obviously,
We just don't want it lingering.
Do you have a height of water, groundwater there by any chance? Sorry, I did not ask you this earlier. From your
I think
previous work?
And
4 feet or something?
This was actually a fill area.
Okay,
Uh,
4
back
feet from the
here, so we
existing
filled up.
surface. Okay, good.
Maybe a little.
That's just my recollection from prior
Okay,
conversation.
that's good. So that decreases the volume, hopefully, that we have to deal with.
so that's part one of this discussion.
Yeah.
Do we have another part?
Part two, we do. I know we
Amy,
had
do
sort
we
of a
want to
spring
vote
cleanup.
on this? We've got a couple things. We have
Well,
to
I
talk
think
about
the only thing on the
extension.
table for voting is the extension.
Right.
Right, so we do the extension. This would be, but you're going with this. We're not gonna go sit on this.
No, this is ready
This is
to go.
definitely to go, okay.
Yes.
Right.
And then we've got our tracking pad up top.
Yep. Which I do have another plan I can
Okay.
present in a little more detail.
So let's keep presenting and
Yep.
then we'll figure out extension and then permitting.
Okay.
Great.
Flip this over. We're gonna move. There you go. See, we're moving up the hill to the building K-Pad. The cinema is off page here. The new Metro Rock building, Rock Line Place is here. This is fenced off, the pad line there. So as we presented before, this thick red dashed line is where Onyx Construction is asked to come take some fill. So they're going to be excavating out of this area. The only change, you had seen this before, but the only change that I like to present is that from the edge of road today back, there is some established grass. There was already a section of silt fence placed and replaced there. So we've moved sort of our controls inside of there. But the general area stays the same. The perimeter controls proposal stays the same.
However, you have controls here where you've got ponding. Isn't that control there?
Yes, there's some ponding
So-
right there. At
Yeah,
least there
so
was
no,
last
that was
week.
asked on our site walk, so it's correct to keep that. So
Okay.
there's definitely ponding in that area. So if you have rain, those controls may have to fan out more.
Sure.
Is there a reason why these can't connect?
Nope, no reason at all.
Okay. So some of the things that we talked about on site was keeping it clean, and that we were going to add silt sacks down the road.
Yep. And so these, we have the catch basins identified here and called them out for silt sacks. This plan was relayed to Onyx, as well as sort of where
Can
we
you
stand.
identify the silt sacks on that?
How would you like, other than calling out to provide silt sack at the catch basins? These here.
On the road going down, so as the trucks are exiting, we want to make sure that the silt sacks, because we've had, when the rains come down, they'll carry them. So I just want to make sure that we're noting how far down we're adding the silt sacks back in.
So we have, I guess we have them to this first set here before we get to the intersection of Tavern of the Square. We were happy to keep adding them down. They're not a big item, but this is the first set of catch basins you hit coming down the road.
I think we're just thinking, and then they're going to be sweeping.
Yep, sweeping both for wetland interest and also because we have an open shopping center. We don't have dirt everywhere.
Have you determined with Onyx how often they're going to be sweeping?
Stefan, do we know that answer?
As needed.
For you or for them?
For
or
us,
for
because
us?
they're under our. For us, because we're going to answer to you, and they have to answer to us.
Well, I think it's just that, if they're if they're hauling on Fridays and then the rains come over on the weekends, and then we're trying
Well,
to
at the end of the week, they'll be doing a cleanup. It's more of a, if it's a dry stretch and they're not tracking, they probably won't have to sweep as much. If they get a rain on the weekend and then they track on Monday, they'll sweep on Monday. They'll sweep during the week. But if it's just a dry period, they'll probably clean up at the end of the week before the weekend.
That's a typical thing to do.
And then when they're done, are you going to hydroseed or do something for cover?
Yes, they have to
Because there's very low
stabilize.
growth out there.
They have to restabilize the area they've disturbed.
Why are you cleaning it out? You got something in mind, a building or something to go there?
They want to fill for another project, so they're actually doing a dam.
It's excess for them.
Yeah, they're doing a dam project and they wanted low permeable soil, which this is perfect for, so.
Buy or sell it.
Right. So they can buy it, and obviously we have this future building pad, so it's just it's sort of a win-win for everybody, so. And hopefully, in part of this process, and get it stabilized, we then have a potential activity pad for other, open space until the building comes online. But I just wanted to add too that we had, previous plan had 2 tracking pads in and out, but after talking to Onyx, they just want to have a large stone area where the trucks will be maneuvering rather than in and out. They're just going to put stone.
Of large stone, right?
Of what?
Of large stone.
Yes.
It's very important that they get the largest stone possible. I've had a
So
lot of
does
experience.
that mean that the tracking, so the entrance is all stone and they can go in wherever they want, or is there still a designated area to go in and out? Because you have this cut here, but you show stone all the way there. Are they going in and out there, or they can go in anywhere there?
I think, and Stefan, if you want to jump up.
The idea is when the trucks go in, when the trucks get off the curb line, they're going to have to do some maneuvers, cutting and turning. They don't want to be doing it on the till, so they're going to put down a large area of stone so that they have a solid
But the
base.
actual in and out is going to be
in one area.
In one area, okay. And that's what's shown on the plan, so. Okay.
How many trips are they anticipating?
I don't know that yet. I don't think they do. Kind of depends on how many trucks they can get a day.
Most of this work will be done during the day?
All during the day.
All during the day when people are in there.
I think they said estimated about 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
How much material are they taking?
15,000 yards.
So as a reminder, as soon as that's set up, and to give Amy a couple days' notice before the hauling starts, to then make sure that nothing's happened, because there is ponding down there with water. So.
They came on board today to look at what they needed to do to start setting up. They're still probably a couple weeks out before they start moving any material.
But so once you have the track pad and everything ready, they would give you hypothetically the start date, and just tell Amy what that start date is.
And I think that if we have heavy rains while they're working, we'll need something else here.
Yep.
It's pretty simple.
Well, as long as it doesn't slide.
Exactly.
That stuff does slide.
There's
It
no
does slide.
invasives, like knotweed, bittersweet.
I did not see any
No,
recently.
they're still
No.
very raw.
That whole area was hydroseeded by us. It's just
Oh,
what
right,
came
I
out of
remember that,
can.
right.
I didn't see anything
I
popping out.
haven't looked at it that close
Yeah.
recently.
I
It's
didn't
just
know.
there,
I didn't notice it. Put
That'd
it
be
that
really
way.
bad for a dam. To have knotweed in it.
Indeed.
Yeah, okay. So that's the second bit. Anything else?
Can I get a copy of that? 11 by 17 is fine.
Sure. There you go.
There was just some general.
Basins and cleanup?
Clean up like this one too.
We had
Mowing, all the basin trees been mowed.
Really?
Yep, and the swale.
I didn't think it was going to be done, so I didn't go up there.
I'll see.
What did you get done
I have
today?
pictures, I tried to send them, but they were too big a file.
Yeah.
No, they finished the mowing on Friday.
Okay, good.
There are actually, Amy or Sarah, either, if somebody could take a walk with me, because that area that we replanted near the state fence.
They cut it?
No, I had them stop short. I just don't know if someone wants me to keep going a little further. Or
Okay.
I didn't want them to cut it mistakenly,
Okay.
so I stopped short of where we probably should be.
Steve, have you been out since the cutting occurred?
No, I have not.
Okay. It'd be good to have Steve look at that as well.
Sure.
So we still have to do some cleaning up. We saw that when Stefan and I walked, the flock logs were working well. I'm assuming, is that still running?
What?
Okay. What's the plan on cleanup in terms of basins or, so the mowing was something, so we got that done. What else was on our list?
So we had
On the list, give me 1 second. Yep.
plan.
I have it here somewhere, maybe. Too many pieces of paper, you know. That's one page of it. Sorry. Oh, wait a sec. It's here. Okay. Next steps is what you're looking for.
Yep.
Okay. Would you like me to go through them?
Sure.
Okay. There's some Marafi paper at the upgrading side of the culvert north of the pad for building M.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be taken out. We've got to change out the erosion controls at the toe of slope, building M, of the Basin 3 and Basin 2 headwaters wetland area, that little three-sided.
We were gonna wait on that until you're,
No, that's the one near where the hotel pad was proposed. I have the silt fence at the top, and you want to
Right.
refresh it.
Okay.
That's, for the rest of the group, that's the
Yep.
what I call the three-sided wetland.
yep,
Walls on three sides by
Okay.
building M.
Actually, right.
Thank you. Yep.
okay,
Cleaning out Basin 3, of course.
Mhm.
Need dry conditions for that.
Yep.
So when that happens.
okay,
Replacing the silt fence and hay bales downstream of Basin 3 discharge.
Yep.
Discharge point. Basin 3 between, we've got the mowing, that was the mowing. Maybe the mowing.
yep,
Supply an as-built plan for Basin 2. It's evidently been built up to the proper grades, you told me?
Yes, and
Or
we do.
Stefan told me?
And Alan Major has said they had been out to do the final survey on that. So
when will we have that?
I will follow with him again. We had a first version when we realized it was not quite to the top, so we had the bottom depth.
Okay.
And we had presented that before. So.
Good. The removal of the soil, of course, and that's going to take only 2 weeks, you think? That's at 30-yard trucks.
Right.
That's
Okay, yeah, so that's immaterial for us.
okay, sure.
Pun intended.
Very good. Some additional mowing of the swale behind the wastewater treatment plant with a subdrain.
Right,
That was actually
Outlets?
completed.
yeah, it's already done.
Great, thank you. And then the facilities, treatment facilities.
Yep.
And we've got a whole bunch of just individual lines for that.
Okay.
I
So I think
that's
the
pretty much.
lasting discussion is really pertaining to basins. And so, and that's still on hold, so it comes back to when you think that will be done, so we fall back to the extension bit. So I know motion was made at the last meeting, so your extension runs through June 17th or 17th. And so this work that is proposed comfortably will be done within 1 calendar year. Will the basin be done within 1 calendar year?
I think the plan was to do it this summer,
Yes.
as presented, so we can be done in 1 calendar year from now. I think we'd hope for 2, so that if there was any other stabilization left over.
I think we can readdress it, but we're trying to hold to the fire of getting it done.
Yep.
Because the basins need to be done.
Okay.
And that will help support the next phase that you're going into as well.
Yeah.
So the building M pad, is there still some finalization to do to that grading in there? Or is that the one that's in front of the theater?
Yes.
That's coming
Yeah.
up, is that correct, Stefan?
Yes.
Yeah,
Aren't you
that's coming
Are you
up.
leaving that for now? Or are you?
Oh,
It's not
re-
ready, it's
actually,
final.
that was on my,
That was withdrawn.
The
No, the hotel was.
Right.
But getting the pad to its
Oh,
final.
right.
I'm
From
very
the-
sorry, that was number 10 on the list. Building and pad elevation. Okay, sorry, I missed that last piece.
And I think the goal was to sort of clean it up generally to what you see and put some kind of temporary stabilization down.
Okay. Because you're gonna, we still have that construction pond or whatever that is, that's gonna get filled in now?
Correct.
Or are we gonna wait?
I don't think it's necessary now that the system, the cinema's in and paved and it's curved and it's going to permanent drainage. It's not serving.
So I think that
purposes.
would help the basins below if we could do that.
Yes, indeed.
So is that what, has that been requested?
Well, that's part of the building M pad, actually, right? Isn't that?
But we're
where the-
not bringing M up to a specific grade, aren't we just, or are we?
Currently, the grades around that pond are within 3 to 4 inches of the
Oh.
proposed paving grades right now.
Okay.
So if we brought the pad up to that elevation, we
To pave?
could pave.
Okay. When can that get done?
So I don't know if we want to pave, but we're happy
Yeah,
to
we're-
clean it up and, loam and seed stabilize, just because we don't want to pave in the event some building comes in that doesn't need paving there, but clean it up, get rid of the pond.
So when would that be done?
That's a this summer project, I think, in line with the Basin 3 work, because it's all together all in that area.
Makes good sense.
I think it all can get done within 1 year, and then when you know what's going on for M, just see what we can do for an extension at that point. Okay. You think you can get all that work done within 1 year?
I think so, that's our goal.
So I would propose.
And are you doing anything else to J at this point where the huge stockpile is? Way back? That's J, right?
No, again, just to clean up, get rid of some of this miscellaneous debris, that's
Yeah.
this one. This is J.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
So I would move for an extension of, Anna had June 17th to add 1 calendar year to that, with the understanding that the exercises presented tonight would be completed by that time.
Second that.
Weather permitting.
Can't control the weather. So you have a second?
Somebody want to second that?
Yes,
Anna did it.
Anna did.
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too.
Give Dan Holmes something else to do. He's just been
Yeah, he's got nothing
filing
better to do.
extensions.
No problem.
Continued discussion, 86 Colonial Drive, U32-1010, Mass DP file number 204-665, possible wetland violation. Somebody want to speak to that?
They're not coming.
No, they can't make it in. They didn't have the plan
Right.
ready, so I said June 3rd, please. So Norse Environmental is doing a restoration plan, and someone's had some medical issues.
Enforcement order 17 Moore
Running out of
Lane.
time now. Close to it. That's,
We already have an enforcement order on that. Yeah.
Hello.
So actually, before you start, the first order of business for 17 Moore Lane would be ratifying the enforcement order that I'd issued. So that just takes a vote, you need to sign it.
So someone wants to make that motion to ratify? Someone that,
Motion to ratify the enforcement order on 17 Moore Lane, R14-2-.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
okay. So
Do you have
now,
something to sign?
Don't need to sign it.
no, that's
Okay.
just a motion.
Now we're running early.
No, you're right on time.
You're right on
Yeah.
time.
Wait, we're at
Free
9:30,
next
aren't
You
we?
9:15.
haven't turned the
9:15.
page yet.
No, it's 9:15.
We
Oh,
just did the
okay.
17 more lane, right? Didn't we?
Yeah,
That's what this is.
That's what this is right now.
go for it.
We ratified
Alright.
before we.
Yeah. No, you have to ratify it in order to start the discussion. Yeah.
Sorry. I
Okay, great. So,
Fine.
you want to introduce yourself to the
Yep.
commission?
Good evening.
Who you're representing?
My name's Greg Hockmuth. I'm a professional wetland scientist with Williams and Spragus up in Middleton. Here presenting the property owners for 17 Moore Lane. This was the result of an enforcement order that you just ratified. The property owners have been there for about a year. It's kind of an interesting area. There's a road that's more or less a common driveway that services, I think, 3 lots. It crosses a perennial stream, and my client's property is just after the just after the perennial stream to the right. They built a tree house, which it's a lot more substantial than your typical tree house. It's very close to the perennial stream. Obviously, something that would have been a challenge to permit with any commission due to proximity to the stream, and I think a portion of it is actually over BBW. So an enforcement order was issued for the treehouse, widening of common drive, gravel placed in wetland, cutting trees, and some grading. And it specified disturbance of bank, BBW, and land underwater. So I met Amy on site last Wednesday to take a look. It was my first time out there. And everything described in the enforcement order appeared to be accurate. It's unclear whether or not there was disturbance to land underwater. I think if there was, it was just the removal of some stones and placement along the banks of the perennial stream. It's our understanding that the banks of that stream, at least in this reach, were lined with stones in the past, and our client just reworked some of those stones to make it look neater. Again, something that was working right in bank and something that probably would not have been permitted with this commission. So,
I'm a neighbor, and, you know, nothing has really changed.
well, let me just, if I could just finish first, thank you. So, you know, a lot of these activities occurred within your jurisdiction, not just within Riverfront Buffer Zone, but some of the work occurred within the resource areas themselves. So what we're proposing to do, well, the client's got a cease and desist in the enforcement order, and they haven't done anything since they got that. They actually contacted me a few weeks ago after receiving the enforcement order, and unfortunately we couldn't get out to the site until last week. So they have been working towards resolution here and trying to comply the best they can with the EO. But after seeing the site, we think everything can be fixed fairly easily, starting with the removal of the treehouse. That can be done. The trees will be fine. The good news is some of the work that occurred in and around the treehouse on the ground surface mainly just involved raking up the leaves, putting them in what appears to be a wheelbarrow, and dumped in other portions of the property. Some of those piles are actually in your jurisdiction as well, so those are going to be removed. The seed bank appears to still be intact. Skunk cabbage, sensitive fern, and other smaller herbaceous growth was seen coming up. There was one spot.
Is this mulch or leaves?
So those are wood chips
They are
from
wood chips,
some
okay.
trees that were
Okay.
cut along the
Right.
road. Part of our proposal would be to rake
Okay.
out the wood chips from the prior no disturb area. Any area that wasn't altered or maintained prior to this disturbance is proposed to be restored back. It's a little bit of a gray area on that side, but working with the applicants or the property owners, we know we can get it back to what it was. It can all be done with hand tools, and anything that's there can be removed from your jurisdiction, from the site entirely, disposed of accordingly, probably at a compost pile. I imagine Littleton has a spot like that where people can bring yard waste. And
They do.
Yeah, transfer
Okay.
station.
There's one area about 10 square feet that will involve a little bit more than just a rake. It just needs, some of the loam needs to be put back in that area and smoothed out and reseeded. Rather than just trust that the seed bank is going to come back and it's going to all restore naturally, we think it should be seeded with probably a wet mix and a conservation mix at equal application rates, just to ensure success. It does rise up sharply from the stream channel. And Amy had a good idea. Some of the stones that were stacked along that bank, most of them were there, but clearly some spots should be open back up so that turtles can pass. I think this is priority habitat.
There's no turtles there. I've lived there for 13 years. I have not seen a turtle going through the stream, and I go there and with my kids and we look at it. And actually now we can actually see the stream. So I'm sure there's turtles at some point, but it's not like a turtle nesting ground.
But we're just proposing to remove some of those stones, again, just by hand, and even place them right in front next to the wall, which is probably
just
where they
moving
came
them.
from.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, if you channelize a stream with a wall, it's very hard for wildlife to get in and
So
out.
just
like
so that they
frogs.
have a path
It
to
didn't
go.
do any- look, it was all there
Nothing.
initially. What happened was, over the years, I suspect these rocks, maybe they were, but they were just there. He stacked the rocks.
Do you have historic photos?
So-
Historical photos?
I don't, but I'm a neighbor. I've seen it for 13 years. If you guys have
No,
historic
no,
photos,
we
I'd
have
love to
this
see
at the
it.
end.
Can you identify yourself, please?
appreciate you trying to help us. Just let me finish.
Can you identify yourself, please?
I'm Chris Lopes,
And your address?
23 Moore Lane.
Thank you.
So our clients have only been there for a year, but Mr. Lopes is here to inform the commission that the stones were there prior to our clients purchasing the property. But our client did admit to Amy and I on the site walk that he reworked some of those stones to make it neater.
So I think you understand what we're looking for is that habitat can not be hit with a stone wall, that they have breaks. So
I do.
to move the stones.
And the only other spot, and correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, along, I guess after you cross the stream to the left, there's a few piles of gravel that just need to be flattened out and removed. To the left of those piles in the wooded areas where there's some leaves and brush. But I think all of this work can be done in probably a day using hand tools. There's no need for erosion controls at this time, in my opinion. But we're hoping that this work can be handled under the EO, which is some oversight from somebody like myself.
That's fine. That's fine. Yep. So I think the goal is to get that done as soon as possible because you do have vegetation that's starting to come up. We don't want to stunt that.
And they were ready to go. They just wanted to come here first, and
we appreciate that.
And it wasn't something that was done blatantly to ignore the rules. They just didn't know.
Right. So we meet again in 2 weeks. Do you anticipate having it done within 2 weeks so that you can come back and?
Do you think that's enough time?
Yeah. Okay. Then just bring photographs back and we'll see if we can remove the EO at that point.
And there's some of the wood chip piles on the other side of the stream where those trees come down, will those be
Removed.
hauled out
Yep.
too? And what do you decide to do about between the driveway and the wetland, that flat wood chip area?
So what we're hoping to do is just use spring rakes and pull those wood chips out, and I think
And that's
in
the
doing so,
conservation mix?
yeah, I think that area should be seeded with. It's a little drier there, it's a little higher, but I think a conservation wildlife mix would do well there.
Okay.
Sometimes the application rates are a little thin, but
We appreciate you working with your client and hope that you will see them through to the completion of it as well.
thank you.
Okay. So my recommendation is to see if we can have it all finished when we meet again in 2 weeks.
I'd like to say, as a neighbor, I really appreciate what the new neighbors did. And I really find any kind of complaint against my neighbor really obnoxious because, that area looked awful. It was between scratching our cars when we drove by and essentially if my kids tipped off their bike, they fall into the pricker bushes. It's just unpleasant. and, you know, the neighbor made it better, and now it's like he's getting, it's like, if you guys lived on the lane, I don't think you would want that in your house. You know, so I'm personally frustrated because this person made our area significantly better. And it's like, I'm concerned about the wildlife. I live there because I want to live in a rural, you know, wooded area. So, I mean, if the guy was going to turn the area into a parking lot, I'd have a serious problem with that. But I really don't see what our neighbor did was wrong. It was pretty much already there the way it was. I mean, some of his lawn got messed up, but
We have one of Matt's flyers, Amy. So
Talks about habitat.
yeah, I think
nutrition.
we have something that might help you understand. I appreciate what you're saying, and it's often hard, you know, when people aren't aware of the regulations and the jurisdiction and things happen, and it's you know. But we have some information that will help explain the Wetlands Protection Act and the reason you have limited ability to take action in the direct vicinity of a stream or a wetland. And so basically we are here to implement the Wetlands Protection Act and the local bylaws which protect the resources. And so that's basically
and I
what we're
get
gonna
that,
do.
and I appreciate that. I'm very respectful. I just I don't I drive by there every day. I just don't see what he did could be harmful to nature. That's my issue.
One other thing is that we just have to be consistent. We can't favor one project over another, So even though it might be good for that specific property, we can't
That's
behave
what
differently.
annoys me, because on the same stream that we're talking about, the same stream, it just on the other side where you have Whitecomb, one of the neighbors, I don't know if they got permission or what. I mean, they mowed it all down and turned it into like a grassy field. Did they have to come and get special permission?
Yeah, if they're in a jurisdictional area.
I wonder if they did. I doubt they did. I didn't see it in the paper.
How long ago was that?
When did that happen?
It happened last summer. And everybody can see it. It's not hidden. It's right on, I mean, anybody driving on Whitecomb can see it. You don't need
Whitecomb or Whitcomb?
Whitcomb.
Okay. Some of that is a retention area. I think I know what you're talking about along the brook. Some of it's a
the same
retention.
stream that we're
Yeah,
talking
but
about.
that needs to be maintained.
Because it has to hold water there. That has a function, so it's part of a storm function. Yep.
One thing the property owners wanted to get a little clarification on is it's a gravel road, and gravel roads get potholes. And they just want to know moving forward that it's okay to fill those potholes and maintain the road, not widen it or expand it, but you just do routine maintenance to that gravel road. They didn't want to do that until they knew that they could. It's shared by at least 3 homes. I believe it's 3 homes.
Yeah, it's them, mine, and another neighbor.
And the road's been there since the early 70s.
It's considered maintenance if you are filling the holes, but if you're regrading the road, then you would have to come in.
I don't need anything.
It's just the holes.
Yeah, if you're taking
Yeah,
like a
but
wheelbarrow of gravel,
No, but
you
you've
know,
got to take
sticking
a scarifier
holes,
and
But they're they're just filling the holes. But if you're regrading the whole road, then you would have to come in for filing.
What do you mean by regrading?
You can explain that to me.
Like adding
Okay.
a lot.
Thank you.
All right,
I know you guys have a
thank you.
busy agenda.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right,
height
thank
of
you.
it, things like
Amy,
that.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Coming in.
Yep.
Continue public.
No, we gotta do.
Amazing she lasted.
I know.
Oh, yeah, oh, sorry.
She'll wait till
I was
we get
thinking
home.
something else. Sorry. Yeah. Crestview.
Continue public hearing, notice of intent, Crestview, Blackborough Road. R05-9A.
Waiting in the oven.
Do we need to sign?
No.
Oh.
R05-219, R05-220, Mass DEP file number 204-878. Proposed shared driveway for 2 single-family houses with intimate stream crossing.
Good evening. Good to see you again. I know it's been a little while. I come tonight because we haven't seen each other in a while, and just to kind of bring us up to speed where we left things off. One, there was still snow on the ground back in March or so. We had set up an appointment for permission for you to go out and visit the site where the house stakes. My client told me he set the stakes. He went out there. I think some of you didn't see any stakes. Much to my surprise, he had pulled them and set them in a different location where they are now. So
We found the plateau.
you found the plateau. Okay. And there wasn't a meeting at the beginning of May, so therefore here we are on the 20th of May. And I wanted to just see if there was any concern with the wetland line in the rear, and if you had any other comments regarding the stakes out there. And my next step is then to complete and finalize the design plans and the calculations as previously discussed in the other meetings. So I don't have those tonight.
Okay.
So, but the goal is to request a continuation simply so that I can bring it all together at once.
Okay.
Okay. So I apologize for the miscommunication between
Go
the
ahead.
client
So I
and
think each commissioners may have different thoughts or updates if they want to go through.
I'll start. So I went out with Amy, and yeah, there weren't house stakes, but with the topography, I've seen the
The
map
plateau,
enough. I
right.
was able to
Great, thank you.
to find that area. I observed quite a few suspect areas on the hillside where there could be groundwater seeps. I didn't look at them closely. There was a lot of leaf litter, but I'm now wondering if, there are, intermittent streams heading down the slope. That was something.
Okay.
Honestly, with the site as a whole, I'm still failing to see where we meet the waiver. And I have really big concerns about the 15% grade and then the need for sand and salt creating a permanent and systemic impact to that wetland and stream.
Okay.
I think it would be a massive liability on us to permit a project and say someone can't use sand and salt on their driveway. That's just not reality. That's not something I'm willing to do. I think it would be irresponsible and really unrealistic for the town to do.
I followed
those are my thoughts.
Julie's comments in terms of, I question the hydrology. I think there's a lot more water out there that is somewhat hidden. And so I would need to see testing to that. The grade, especially as it kind of comes up and loops to the left closer to the property bound, concerns me. And then the water coming down, even as I went down, we all know the Zero Newtown down there, to see the water that comes down off that hill, goes underground, comes all the way down to the main road. I mean, we're really at capacities here. And I'm concerned that once we go ahead and cut off that hill and potentially cut into some of that water, really where that water's going to go. I would really need to see some borings of where that water's, how it's going through that land.
So I second everything that was said so far. I did, in addition, I did see evidence of scouring around the bases of vegetation on that hillside, so you could actually see where water was breaking out. There was definitely hydraulic evidence along that
I'm
hillside.
concerned that now that as the
Sure.
vegetation gets stronger and stronger, you might not see some of that scouring that we saw. There's a lot of ticks.
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to see that now versus there's a lot of cover in there. Amy, did you see anything else when you went out? Julie?
No.
Sweet. You guys weren't really dry,
It was dry. I mean, it had recently rained per like every day for the past, I don't even know how long. We did see someone was moving the pile of material with the knotweed up kind of at that front corner.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if, are you
We haven't
You know
been out
where
there
the
at all. I
knotweed's
know where the
moving.
knotweed is. I put it on the plan as the location. That's
Right.
being dumped from the neighborhood somewhere.
Well, someone it looked as though someone like pulled material out, and so the concern is not moving the knotweed around to like another okay.
Yeah,
so
knotweed's
you
not
have no
from our
knowledge.
site, it's from another site, so
Yeah.
it's not from our client. It seems like there's...
I just didn't know if you were aware of it.
I
That's
haven't
really
been
the
out
only
there
question.
since before you went out there, so
Okay.
if there's evidence, I'll let you go take another look.
The concern is just I
Don't
know
wanna
that
keep
area was
disturbing it,
part of,
yeah.
that
Right.
area was part of a, proposed, like, cleanup and removal.
Correct.
So my concern is, hopefully it's not a preemptive removal to use,
I don't think so. I can check
use
with the client.
elsewhere.
Right.
So-
I don't think it's, unless it's spring cleanup.
So, do you have any knowledge of like what we're referring to in terms of some of the scouring out there? Because I know it was hard to see. I feel like I saw it more on the last time I was out versus months
time.
ago. Yeah.
I mean, just from like surface runoff.
Yeah.
Creating ruts.
Yep.
Is what you're...
Yep. But if you get a chance to go back
I'll
out
go, I
and
will,
look at that.
certainly. A couple of us will.
From all the rain you've had, you mean?
Mm.
Yeah, because when I went out there, at least the part of the area where I think that I didn't see stakes when I was out there because it was prior to that time, but I didn't notice scouring on the hill itself.
You're talking about the steep slope going to the wetland. Yeah. Okay.
But I was questioning. I thought the stream had a lot of flow and looked perennial to me, but
It is perennial, isn't it?
oh, I
It is
thought
perennial.
I
It's
thought it's
mapped on
marked as
Oliver's.
intermittent.
It's mapped.
Oh, no, it's mapped as
No, no, no.
intermittent. It's not mapped in Oliver as perennial. It is intermittent per the
And
all
you did a
USGS.
watershed analysis.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's smaller than the watershed allowed.
Right, right.
Required. Yes, it is intermittent. Per
Is it- yeah.
all
Okay.
the maps and the watershed
Right.
size.
And it's staying within its bank most of the way. Then it kind of changes a little bit.
When you guys went out there, did it also have high flow? Probably because of all the rain.
Yeah.
Confidence flowing now. I think the commission has been very consistent in our concerns.
No,
I
understood.
think that the grade is really concerning, and the impact down gradient
Mhm.
for sure. And I don't feel as though we've done our diligence of researching down gradient in terms of the water quality as well. And that area down at the corner where it meets Newtown, who maintains that? Like it's nasty.
Nobody.
It needs to get cleaned.
Corner where Crestview and that's actually town land in there that was put in there years ago for drainage purposes.
Right, but that's at capacity.
Yeah, it's
now,
not
so-
maintained. It's just
That was
left
part of the
natural.
development of that whole neighborhood.
Right.
That was-
Yeah.
Yeah, we know
So I'm
Drainage.
concerned by now adding more water there. Where's that water gonna go? I just drove past there tonight.
I know that I brought to the attention of the board that a lot of those culverts are
Right.
half full
All right, you
with.
did some discovery.
Yeah.
Certainly needs some maintenance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, just to reiterate, I feel as though we still haven't met the bar for a waiver.
Correct. Yeah, I understand that. I think we all, well, I agree with that. So.
You mean the land donation?
The land donation is wetlands that is protected and not usable anyways, and we would need wetland crossings and wetland impacts with trails to do any access.
I know then we had talked about
Yeah,
it, not
why-
doing that, but doing conservation restrictions on the lands rather than the donation, so, okay.
Is there anything else you need from us, or?
No, just as if there's any other comments from the members that haven't spoken.
Is your concern that the delineation is wrong, or just that all the sort of seeps and scouring and runoff you're seeing is hinting there's a lot more hydrology?
I'm hinting
coming
that
out
there's,
than it's-
I would
yeah.
require
Yeah,
more
hydrology is
testing
my
for
concern,
hydrology,
for
like
sure.
actual borings.
Yep.
Yep.
Without equipment. Can't get equipment in there.
Borings mean to see if there's hydric soils in there, or just borings and...
It's gonna
Like
come right out.
piezometers, like what's your groundwater on the hills, like your groundwater flow on the hillside, characterizing that.
I wouldn't do it now.
So what's your
It's
intercept
getting wet
weight?
up there right now.
Now's the time.
It's coming down still, right into the yard. If you want to come look at my backyard. I'd love for
Now's
you to come
a
look
now's
at
a
my
perfect
backyard
time to
right
do it
now.
because you get to see where it is going.
Standing water.
Absolutely, right behind my wall. It's probably this deep.
If you're wrapping.
Sorry, could you say your name?
I'm sorry, Jackie Farrell, 16 Crestview. So if the discussion is wrapping up, I would just like, I wrote up some notes that kind of list the things that were on my mind, and if I don't read it, I might forget some,
Yeah.
so if you don't mind.
We appreciate lists.
Okay.
I'm taking notes.
She just hand them to you.
So the commission members frequently refer to the high bar that Littleton regulations put above and beyond the state. So I've been trying to read through them and trying to understand them in my layman's way. Haven't gotten past Littleton's onto Massachusetts because even just within that, there's a lot that for me doesn't seem to be matching up with what I'm hearing about the project. Point one, the waivers from regulations mention as 1A the possibility of being in the public interest, and I don't believe that the proposed land gift, given that the wetland is already under protected by law and accessible by a historic trail, satisfies in the public interest, nor does it meet the standard of offering, quote, a significant net environmental improvement in the condition of the buffer zone, unquote. Point two, the land is wet and obviously so, and was so when the current owner bought it. The landowner built on an adjacent property that would have provided access to Crestview Road. Thus, he restricted his own options to building through the wetland. Surely, this should be taken into account when deciding on the necessity of traversing the wetland. Therefore, I do not believe the project meets the test of 1.4, number 1C, quote, least environmentally damaging practicable alternative, unquote. 3. There seems to be general agreement that the driveway would necessitate, or at least encourage the use of chemicals to make it safe to walk and drive on in the winter. I am not convinced that the wetland will survive this project's subsequent house occupation because of that fact and others. So I don't believe that it is from 1.4, number 2, quote, consistent with the intent and the purpose of the bylaw. 4, at least one board member expressed concern about the probability that springs result from breaking through the ground. As downhill abutters, this doesn't immediately bring to mind being in the public interest. 5. Section 5.2, quote, the commission strongly discourages any plan that requires wetland replication. This commission is under no obligation to grant a waiver. It's an exception, and it's an exception to be used in very specific circumstances. You're under no obligation to allow the wetland to be traversed. The commissioners repeatedly offer suggestions to the owner as to how to make it acceptable, and this, to my mind, does not fit the role of stated object of discouraging such a project. That was my last point.
Okay, thank you. One of the things you brought up about the, his alternative, cutting off his other alternative enforcement. I think you went over that in one of the initial discussions, and they examined that other alternative in it. And from what I recall, that the length of the access would have prohibited that also.
There is a bylaw in town of a maximum length for a shared driveway. So that, to create two lots as being proposed now further back there, that shared driveway wouldn't have reached around the wetlands to get to that point. And it includes not just to the fork, but to the end of the longest driveway. So that length would require a variance through the zoning board of appeals, which most likely would not be allowed. So the alternative was to have a shared driveway of a length under the maximum length, which is the route that we took.
But as was mentioned in a previous meeting, the hardship generated by the owner is not a hardship the Conservation Commission made.
Correct.
So he had alternatives. He decided not to rethink his whole project before he built anything. Building the young lady's house over there eliminated alternatives that would have kept him completely out of the wetlands, or almost completely out of the wetlands. And instead now, because he made his money, probably paid the property off by selling that property and that house, he now wants to put more houses out here, and that's his right. He owns the property as long as he can do it without affecting the abutters, the wetlands, et cetera, et cetera. And so we've been consistent. We're not against the guy building his house. We're against the guy building his houses and putting a driveway down through the wetlands that essentially will make a river of water down to us. I think that's where we've been pretty consistent. And we hope that you folks, and it sounds like you're somewhat on the same page, at least initially. We hope that you folks see the same position, or at least understand where we're coming from.
So did you say your name?
I'm sorry, Ed Foltz.
And your
I'm on
address?
Newtown, the white farmhouse with the horses
You have the
that are
address?
swimming in the water.
Ducks are
Can I
happy.
just point out that his is the end catch basin for the water that goes under Crestview.
Yeah.
That's where the
No,
stream goes.
Yeah.
It
And we
comes
give
out
Some
in
nice
the
cardinal
pasture.
flower in the wetlands.
Yeah, you
You
get
get
a
the
lot of
bird's eye
water.
view on 19 Crest view of the water flowing past my house, and then there goes his backyard.
So Mass DEP addresses if you box yourself in part of their access roadways regulations. And so that would be something that Mass DEP would consider. And so part of the regulation, I'll read the little part, it says reasonable alternative means of access may include any previously or currently available alternatives such as realignment or reconfiguration of the project, or to otherwise minimize adverse impacts on the resource areas. The issuing authority, in this case either us or Mass DEP, may require the applicant to utilize access over an adjacent parcel of land currently or formerly owned by the applicant, or in which the applicant has or can obtain an ownership interest. So there's information in the regulations about, and actually I think we recently saw a case where instead of filling and building a driveway over a vernal pool, they were able to get an easement through an adjacent parcel of land. So there's quite a bit of precedent for that method as a reasonable alternative to crossing or filling a wetland.
So would that affect my property then?
Well, you'd have to agree to it.
You have to grant
The
an
abutter would
easement.
have to agree, grant an easement.
But
This doesn't, yeah, so obviously this doesn't speak to the reality of whether, that's kind of left, but.
That speaks to the reality of
Boxing yourself
before
in.
it was built.
Right, it speaks to the reality of boxing yourself in. There is precedent, Mass DEP does deal with this issue.
And it was mentioned a few months ago when that was brought up. It was mentioned that the zoning board of appeals is considerably more strict or more difficult to traverse than this board. And at the time, I had suggested that maybe the owner was picking boards, thinking he was going to have an easier time to get through you folks than through the zoning board.
How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. We take every applicant as it comes, so.
Right.
Okay. Is there anything else that we can offer to you? I think we've
No, as
given
long
you-
as everybody's had their say, then
Just one other question. Sorry. If in fact it went through and the property that they're proposing donating was donated, there was still also one issue of it bumped out and there was only going to be essentially a little teeny tiny walking path between where it was wet and their property. And I'm not sure that anyone has addressed that because it was my concern that if this ended up being how it went, that property line would need to move over more than it was so that there'd be enough room for people to get by the wetlands.
We did modify that after that one meeting. I don't think you were at the next one, but.
I've been at every one. That's my last.
You weren't.
My last.
Yeah, they did.
Nonetheless, it did get bumped out,
Maybe it
but
wasn't enough.
then we talked about not doing it at all, so.
Okay. My
Thank
only
you.
other question is, how long is this going to go? I mean, we've been going at this now for a couple of months, at 9:30 meetings, and is there?
Well, there's still people, we still have
No, I get
hearings
that.
after you,
Is
so
a
there are some that go on
deadline
for years.
So there's no deadline for the process?
As long as he wants to spend the money.
All right, okay.
Until he says to us that, I want to go ahead and close, he's not willing to give us any more information.
Okay.
So we can keep asking as things through discovery, but he could say at any time, sorry, game's over.
All right.
And then
I
we
just
can only,
wasn't familiar with the
yep, we
process.
can only use the data that's given to us
Fair
and so
enough.
forth.
Thank you.
Yep.
Alright.
Yes.
Yep.
Don McClory, 10 Crestview. I invite anybody to take a walk in my yard anytime they'd like. And if they want to walk in the Knowles yard, I'm sure Mark wouldn't mind either. My yard's very, very muddy right now. Starting to dry out though. So is his. The water comes down off that hill, goes right between our property line. There's a stone wall there. The water's probably this deep right now, behind that stone wall. And when it gets around that deep, it just seeps in into the corner of my yard, and it's a mud pit. Anybody, you're more than welcome to walk in the yard anytime you want to see it. And it comes right down off, right down off that hill whenever we get a decent rain, especially like what we've had the last couple, 3 weeks. My concern is if they go and they move things around, everything that I see on there is not going to be in my favor. It's not going to be in Jackie's favor. It's not going to be in the Knowles' favor. What's the name? Other name? People.
Swans?
The Swans.
The Swans, yeah, there's two. I'm not one to stop progress, but let's try to figure out how to do it right if it's going to be done.
Okay.
Thank you.
We appreciate your.
Okay.
So, just when we were talking about boxing project in...
I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Jenny Boyer, and I live on Boxborough. I'm the property that did the boxing. So I do know that there were some people that lived in a house that we built behind, and they had approached the owner about buying all of this land at one point to build one house on, and he turned them down. So I don't know if that has any bearing on anything, but there was an option put forward at one point for someone to buy the entirety and just put one home on it.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, but we appreciate the context.
All right, so we gotta move on.
Yep, no, it's fine. So we just
Done.
asked to continue it. I
Thank
guess
you.
with all this addressing,
So
it
we
would make
meet in
sense.
2 weeks. When do you want to?
Can we go 4 weeks in with all the questions?
Amy,
Would that be
what's
sufficient?
so that is the 17th of June. 17th? Okay.
That would just give me time
Yep.
to meet with a client
Yep.
and still pull everything together if he
Amy
wants to
will
go
let
with
you
that.
know the timing on the 17th will be the next 17th.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Yep.
Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your time.
No.
My goodness, you have to
I know.
come here.
They're
every
volunteers,
2
too.
weeks.
I
Sorry, thank you.
We really enjoy each other's company.
The pay is really good.
Yeah.
You should try it sometime.
Probably the same thing that the EDC pays me,
Yeah.
right?
So,
All right.
Request for an extension, Durkey Farm, Mass DEP file number
You got your list.
204-806, 204-798, 204-807,
Yeah, well,
204-813, 204-812,
let's just go through the ones that are gonna go through.
Well,
This is the extension, so.
Okay. Oh,
204-772, okay?
extensions, yes.
Good evening, for the record, Brian Goodrow, Hancock Associates. So there's been a number of sidewalks and a number of housekeeping items that have been addressed on site. Amy was out there this morning, I was out there this morning as
I was
well.
out there tonight.
I think we've really hit on all of them. You know, in the interest of brevity, I didn't bring Dave Kell this evening to give you the whole spiel about open space E and additional planting plans. It's our expectation to get those taken care of, you know, probably next meeting following. So, kind of with that said, I believe there's a handful of items on existing orders of conditions that are ready for a COC issuance, and then obviously we're coming up against our roadway order of conditions expiration, and we're looking to extend that, and we have filed that along with, I believe, 6 other lots, which is primarily the tail end of Spruce Street. Some of the lots have not been built, like lot 19, whereas lot 20, 21 have, but obviously they're not going to be stabilized before the September expirance. So we've lumped them all in together. So with that,
are we going through these individually?
I'd be happy to, however the commission would like to do that.
I just want to make sure we're not lumping anything together, so that we're. Amy, how do you have?
I have a.
Oh, I don't know if you wanted to tackle the extensions first or the certificates of compliance first. I think the biggest issue for these guys is getting the extension for the roadway.
Correct.
That expires June 17th or something like that. So that's probably the most critical.
Which roadway?
Action.
It's
The
Turkey
whole-
Farm, so it's all
all of
Deep
them.
Balsam, Fraser, and Spruce Street.
Oh, everything's okay.
Everything. So if you recall back in 2015, 2016, we had filed one notice of intent that encompassed all of Turkey Farm Estates roadway constructions and infrastructure, and then we subsequently filed all the individual lots as order of conditions. So the primary is that first is the first order of conditions that was issued for all the roads is what we're looking to extend. We filed COC requests for any lots that are in a good place, you know, and the work is substantially complete. And then the lots that aren't, within the next month or so, we filed extensions as well on that. But the critical one is the roadway, as it's the oldest order of conditions that was issued.
Let's tackle the order of conditions first. Let's kind of pick away at that. And
You mean the extension?
No, the ones that we're going to do the
COCs.
Okay.
So Amy, so the three of us went out last week and kind of went through and said yay, nay. I went out.
Yay, nay, maybe.
Yep, let's do the yays.
Lot 7, and I'm doing these by lot number, so they're geographically in a weird order, which is the one that's next to open space E. There have been some erosion, some mowing, and some grass clipping piles. I actually met the owner out there, I don't know, Thursday night or something, and he wasn't too clear on where he should or shouldn't mow. He was very happy to mow less.
Good.
So he's probably just going to do a swath parallel to the stone wall there.
Okay.
So I think, and the hay bales, the erosion controls have been removed.
So do you have different signatures on these, or are we just doing one?
Oh, they're all different.
Okay, so let's go ahead and
By
start with
lot?
7.
Each one is- okay.
And I would make a motion that we approve lot 7.
Okay, I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye. Okay.
One down. How many
Yep.
left?
Okay, lot 8, which is, you hit as you're driving in. That's actually been close to ready. They just need to take the erosion controls out. They're out, everything's stable, the signs are up, so
Yep.
lot 8 is ready.
I move that we accept lot 8.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then lot 9, which is the one that's next to basin 3.
10 we're not doing.
10 we are not doing.
We're not doing. So
9 is one we asked for a new post to be put in, so it's clear where he's supposed to mow.
Yep.
And that is in, so I think that one's ready.
I move that we close and issue order conditions for 9.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Certificate of compliance, not order conditions.
What did I say?
or if you want another one. And then lot 12, which is at the end of the run near Basin 4. That actually was just waiting for the final erosion controls to be removed, which they have been.
That's 12.
That's 12, which is 12 River Street.
I move that we issue a certificate of compliance for lot number 12.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, lot 14, which is
Let's all
around
hold them at the end. And then we're not gonna
around the corner a little bit.
confuse her.
That one just was barely in the buffer zone. So that one's ready to go.
Sorry, I wasn't.
Lot 14.
I move that we issue a certificate of compliance for lot number 14.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
And then going down, what is it, Spruce Street, lot 23, still a little bit of stabilization to go on that one. And is that the one with the car? in it?
That's the one that had the car and the car.
Yeah, and
has
the car's been
removed.
removed, and the poles have been set, but there's still a little stabilization. It's just, oh, did you put a bunch of riprap on that one? Stone?
I believe the back of the, that back slope.
They lit stone.
They dressed it up.
Yeah.
I saw the new posts for
New posts.
signs. and that.
They're, yeah.
So, but we're gonna hold on that
But
for.
hold on 23. 24 is ready, the erosion controls along that entire line have been removed. So lot 24.
I move that we issue a certificate of compliance for lot number 24.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
25 still has, there's still a little bit of rut in the back that needs some stabilization, so that's a hold. But lot 26, the end of the line there is ready to go.
That's the one that wanted to put in a fence
A bunch
or
of stuff.
something and.
He never came back.
Never did anything. I move that we issue a certificate of compliance for lot number 26.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then lot 30, which is the one that's next to lot 7, needs stabilization, which they have done, it just needs to grow,
Yeah,
so that's not
it's-
ready.
Yeah, it's got some scouring.
And lot 25, lot 23, lot 10, they're all holds.
Brian, you agree with all those comments?
So, yeah, it's all consistent with what we saw on site and what we were discussing.
That's 7.
Oh, 2, 7.
Wait, okay, so you said 30 and 2 are also hold? Oh, lot 2 is issued already, so that's done. Is that what that says?
Yep, we're previously.
Yeah, 30, 25, 23, and 10. First of all.
5 and 10. Okay.
3 and 10, yep.
All right.
Okay, extensions, let's do the road last. We have a request for extensions for, I see all these numbers, are these all,
Is that all roadway?
are those all roads?
No.
Okay, let's.
The last one, 772 is a road, everything else is a house.
Okay, so we're looking to extend 806, so all those with the exception of the last, which is 772. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Is that correct? And those are extensions, why?
Work isn't going to be done, or it's not going to be fully stabilized before the order of conditions are going to expire, essentially. And if you think about where these lots fall in the project, they're at the phase 3,
Okay.
so the end
So-
of Spruce Street.
How long are we looking to make that extension for?
We've asked for 3 years on everything.
It's gonna be 3 years before you get the houses in.
So we've asked for 3 years. That's the
No,
maximum.
How long till you get the houses in?
Realistically, 21 and 20 are under agreement, so is 22, 15 is, I mean,
6 months.
yeah, 4 of them
Yeah,
are
so
gonna be
we gotta
done
get 3 years on it,
this
so-
season. Binders down on Spruce Street itself, we're looking for fall town meeting, whether that actually happens. We're trying to wrap it up
Yeah.
Get
this
your
year.
basins done.
So
Yeah,
on
understood.
on those 6, with the exception of the road, I would move for a 1-year extension on the 6.
I'll second that.
Hang on one second here. 807, is that a typo or is that the rate?
8, so you've got
204, 807, no, that's lot 9. Are you building lot 19? Or is that, did that become the cave?
Lot 19 will be built, we're still awaiting some Board of Health things.
Okay, so as a point of order for my motion, can we just walk through? I'd like to state for the minutes which ones we're going to approve. So the road is 806 or 772?
772.
Okay, so my motion includes 204, I'll put my glasses on for this one. 204, 806, 204, 798, 204, 807, 204, 813, 204, 812, and 204, 815. Those are the 6 that we voted on.
So it's 1 year?
1 year.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So how about the road?
That's for discussion now.
Oh.
So, just to be clear, extension is from the September expiration date?
Correct. And we'll sign that one first. Did all those go out?
So when you say the road, that one number is for all the roads? Is that what we?
No.
No, the
Those
one
are all
we're getting.
houses.
The
Those are all
6
houses
that
that
were
we
just,
just did.
the 6 that
No,
were
the
just done.
772.
The 772
Is
is
for
for
all the
all the
roads.
roads.
Yeah.
One number
And
for
basins.
all
One,
roads.
yep.
And basins.
And basins.
Oh, and basins.
It's all infrastructure associated with the
Okay.
roadway.
Oh, now they're starting to close.
Okay, so, right, so Matt, keep them in your hands for a second. We may have given them to you a little too early, so, sorry. Matt, keep your hand on that one.
The extensions are.
I'm not kidding. Always have them back at the right time. There's the rest of these.
I'll take these.
Sure?
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
Just over here and I'll figure it out
You're on
tomorrow morning.
TV.
More extensions.
So it should be 6 of these.
Should be.
Anna's counting. Oh. Getting to the night, everyone's signatures are getting shorter and shorter.
So is mine.
You're doing a good job, James. Nearing the end of signatures. Okay. Great. So, Brian, if you can talk a little bit about what this extension would entail, what you're seeking. We'll try and negotiate that a little bit. But I would like the commission, I think we continually reiterate our concern for the basins that are there
Mhm.
and the efficiency of them, or sometimes lack of efficiency of them. And then what we saw the other day was concerning with the overflow of the water coming out of the house going into the basin, and
We're talking
then
about-
it left Grimes Lane.
We're talking about 2.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Amy, you didn't take any pictures of that, did you?
Yes, I did.
Well, how about, Brian, go ahead and talk about that. I don't know if I took pictures or not.
So the area that's was in question last week when we were walking the site is the backyards of lots 4 through 6 and 27 through 29. Basically collect into a low point at the property lines, and then runoff goes towards Basin 2, which is, as it was designed, there's an off-roadway trail, a paved trail, that water is currently going over the top of, and there's, I believe, 2 units that had sump pumps that were discharging into the swale that's there. So, with that being witnessed, we're going to recommend some sort of fix, if you will, so that the water is no longer going over the top of the sidewalk and into Basin 2. The contributory area was
It was bad.
there was a little water.
It's like you're not doing it justice. I don't have pictures. It was bad.
There was a little water. So we're going to recommend kind of some sidewalk tweaks to make that not happen.
Waterfall.
So
Waterfalls.
water
water's
was
coming
out of the house, out of the
the house
basement.
into this. Yep. So
It's
3
yards.
hoses, comes down
Do you have
in
that in
a
your map?
not defined gravel path.
Oh, okay.
Went
Yep.
over
So there was
the
always
sidewalk
Yep.
of
No, I know
the
that's-
sidewalk
And the
into
concern is right
the
here
detention
with the
basin.
paved
like a
sidewalk
lot of
is.
water.
And it's a good thing it wasn't winter. It would have been
Oh.
Wait,
devastating.
which house and which detention basin was that?
Right
The
off
one up by,
Grimes Lane.
the one up by
Right,
Grimes.
Grimes
Two.
Yeah, basin.
So
The
it's
one that was,
houses
the
all
one,
back.
the basin that
It's a bunch of
we
houses.
liked, the
Yes.
one that was working.
Mhm.
But now we've put, and it's got, you know, it has a lot of leaf litter in it, it needs
Correct.
to be worked on. The outflow of that, you guys have since addressed that, that looked nasty going across Grimes.
Oh, really? It went
So-
into that
Exactly,
field?
yep.
The field all
Yeah.
How
silty?
many houses require sump pumps?
Into that particular area, all three. Yep. But I think the area, the drainage area in question is undersized.
The drainage
Well,
area.
where the pipes are all coming into.
Where the swale is located
Yeah, the
right
swale.
now, yeah.
It
So
should
that-
be a proper drainage.
Correct, it
system.
should be a
Right.
graded swale to what we
Right. What we
recommend
recommend.
for the sidewalk, and then obviously the appropriate slope stabilization into
Right.
two.
So and I know that you've chatted numerous times about the schedule that you foresee in terms of doing as-builts, cleaning out the basins. Can you just kind of reiterate one last time?
Yep.
Because I think that is really paramount to the extension.
Mhm. So our timing is weather dependent on 2 and 3. 2 is more of a housekeeping outside of the reconstruction that we just were talking about in terms of collecting yard runoff and what happens at the sidewalk going around 2. It's weather dependent, and we need a little bit of dry weather to make it happen. We've always represented June, probably towards the end of June, that this is going to happen. And 2 as well as 3, those 2 reconstruction activities, that's the goal. That's what we had represented to the planning board as well last month when we were before them, and they were on board with that time frame. So they're in process.
The challenge I have with the new houses and the drainage that's coming in, I thought that the basins, the ones that haven't worked flawlessly, I thought that before we were going to start this phase that we currently are in now, that we were gonna really have them built, stabled, running like really well. And yet it hasn't been cleaned out. We haven't done those things, so I'm
Mhm.
concerned that it needs to get done.
So basin 2 that we were just talking about, there's leaf litter from the fall that hasn't been cleaned, and it needs to be cleaned. And the same, when that is being done, there's like half of the basin, maybe a third of the basin, had some issues with infiltration to rake out the loam and reseed it. So that's what's timing dependent. On basin 3, it's really, we gotta get out of the spring season itself to get in there, de-water it, and then reconstruct that.
But it's been a while since we've, or I might be wrong, that we've de-watered that and worked on that. 2 years now?
It wasn't, and it was the fall before last, so yeah, a year and a
2 years.
half.
So, right, I feel like we've got to de-water and we've got to get going on that basin. And that was 2 years ago, and in theory, that was supposed to be, it never worked when it was built. And that's why we had challenges with that. So I personally feel as though we have to be consistent with them, just like you are with the point with everyone else, is that these extensions cannot keep going on for 3 years. They have to be in shorter increments to ensure that we're doing what's right for the property. But
Oh, the basin 2, it seems like the problems have been shifting. Like, the first problem was the breaking out at the exit of it.
Right.
And now it's moved to, it's just not infiltrating, correct?
And we're adding more water into it too.
More water.
From the back of those houses.
I mean, is the water from the back of the houses?
It was
Here's-
designed to
The
take that
foundation
water.
drains.
Yeah, foundation
So it was
drains.
designed to take the
and-
water,
and it
but
was
it's
a lot of water.
undersized.
No. So I would
Well, it's not
contend that all of
undersized,
these
it's not.
are.
So it's
not
designed to go
undersized.
over the sidewalk.
So, I mean, essentially, water from backyards was designed to get into that basin, and then with the sidewalk.
over
being
the
placed-
sidewalk?
So,
So the sidewalk's gonna fail.
So what we're doing is we're going to be recommending a fix on that sidewalk location.
So like a
needs to
culvert
be
under it
tweaked.
or something?
Something to that effect.
See,
We're
that's the
gonna.
basin that I liked. It was like the only one that was built in. Well,
No, you
it
like
wasn't
basin
even built.
one because we
Well,
never
oh
looked
yeah,
at
no,
basin
one, yeah. Pump it back up the hill.
And 4.
Did Green Affiliates look at the last Friday? I think they were gonna try to stop by.
So I
Basin
haven't.
two.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't.
I think they
I
were
don't know
on
if they
TikTok,
have.
you know, yeah.
No,
I
I'm
didn't
not
hear
sure what
from
they've
them,
been looking at.
But if you're going to put something under the sidewalk, then we're gonna have to look at the efficiency of that basin, because will be then constructed differently than what was approved. I think that it was never intended to have that much water flowing over the sidewalk, because I think there's more water there than what we anticipated.
What
So
if instead of addressing the sidewalk, you address what's flowing onto put rain gardens or something in the lawns
Yeah.
instead of having it
Walls.
flow directly over the lawn onto the sidewalk? Slow it down before it
When
goes
we
on.
when we present the fix for that area, what we can do is we can go back and kind of re-describe exactly how we define some catchment areas, where they're going, what the volumes were assumed and associated with the calculations, and just give you that detailed background on what it was originally supposed to take and what it is.
I do
taking right
encourage
now.
commissioners to go out and just take a peek at that basin, and if you walk onto the back of the sidewalk of the basin, you'll see the water. You can't miss the pipes that are coming out, but you'll see that. So, and then, our other basin, which has a lot of water in it, it needs to get cleaned. It's not, it's just a pool. It's not infiltrating.
If we're having all this trouble with it now.
The town wants to approve it next year. It's gotta get
No.
rebuilt.
Town meeting?
I wouldn't, we've
Well, it
gotta
got
be able.
pulled once for the basins, that's why it got pulled last fall.
I mean, who's
for the basins.
responsible down the road?
Town.
Well, the town's responsible, so that's, we accepted.
Right.
Does that flow over the sidewalk in the winter too?
I don't know.
So it'd be a freezing.
I've driven down there.
Yeah, it was
and
kind of a
seen
new
water going.
condition that we only just saw, so.
Yeah.
But it would have been, if it was, obviously it would be a
Yeah, at least
liability.
that would have been.
But, yeah, okay. So, I know the question on the table is 772 and the extension. So I think it would be interesting to hear from the commissioners at what frame in terms of point of time, because this expires soon. This one's in June, correct?
Yeah, this one's.
This one's in June. How long you would like for them, taking in mind that they need to clean the basins?
Sounds like something similar to the point
Correct.
where we do it in increments.
3 years is definitely too long.
Yeah.
I don't feel 3 years is appropriate.
Shorter incremental time.
Right. With expectations
Right.
as well.
I think we need to do it the same way.
3 months?
Basins have to get done.
Because the other sort of main thing that needs to be done is the restoration of Farm Pond.
Where are we on that in terms of tracking? Like time and how long do you think it would take to do that?
The actual work, it's a week of taking out dead vegetation,
Right.
making sure we have the nursery stock on site, and then just getting it in there. So we
And
have
what's
the
your ideal
recommended.
conditions for that? When do you want to do that?
Again, that's this season. That's in the next couple of
You don't want
next
to plant
month.
summer. though.
Right. You know,
Right.
that's what I was just thinking.
Mm.
Right.
I mean, we can certainly do it in
In
the
this
fall.
case, you might, because it's pretty wet in there.
Yeah.
I'm just afraid of all of a sudden like planting it, and then all of a sudden it's gonna get sucked right out, and then we're not gonna be able to.
I think it's okay to plant through May. And after that.
But it's
Right,
but
they
now
need
it's
to
too
pull
wet
stuff
right
out
now.
first before they can plant.
The way it's going, it's gonna be too wet come June and July too.
No.
So-
This is actually the wettest 12 months on record since records started getting kept in 1895. Yeah.
I mean, just look
Wettest
at what's
12 months.
coming
All right,
across
so-
the country all
Anyways,
the
yeah.
time.
Dates.
A year?
I don't think they're gonna get.
6 months?
So you get through to the fall.
Is it May to November?
How about the 1st of October?
When's fall town meeting?
End of October, early
This-
November?
So I didn't know if that would play into where you might want to do this. And they might have to go to spring
I
town
want it
meeting
done
too,
right
who knows
though.
what
I don't
it's-
want it hustled to get to,
It's not,
and then
but it
not
wouldn't
have
be
a.
so
Well, that
long
gives
because it
them-
all has to grow. It has to.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
gives them
Yeah.
a time
Oh, that's
frame
true. Okay.
Yeah.
that's possibly dry. Possibly.
Yeah, I think this summer through the fall. I mean, things are going to stop growing in November.
So December 1st, maybe? Or is it- I feel like we've had decent weather
Mhm.
in November,
Right.
you know, and you can't get stuff done, but things are possible.
December
Asphalt batch.
So how
plants are
many
usually
months?
still in
Yeah.
November.
So we're, do you want to make
So-
that motion? So that motion is for 7/7/2.
Like 6 months.
June 1st?
Well, but it expires when, Amy? June 30th? Can we just set a date, an expiration
June
date?
15th.
Okay.
Right, so you can just set the date for
So-
expiration. You don't have to say
Yeah,
yeah.
6 months or something.
Pick a
You can-
date.
you
I
can
have to
pick-
write down a date, so if you say 3 months, I'm gonna write in, you know.
Right.
So it needs a date.
Yeah. Okay. So December 1st
Sure.
Of this year.
of this year?
You said December?
December 1st, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So in terms of, I guess, timing, it would be my anticipation I'll be back here before your next meeting to discuss open space E, the restoration, and make sure that we have that. We can give you updates in 2 weeks on weather conditions, and hopefully things are better, and we can actually make forward progress on this and kind of go from there. So our two kind of key outstanding items for discussion was the open space E and then wildlife access corridors. So we'll have those two pieces to discuss the next go around.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian, you know, did the erosion controls at that disputed area in K, that swale that came down, did those get?
Yes, I believe they did,
I-
but I will,
Oh, I
I'll
didn't,
follow up with
I
you
totally forgot that.
tomorrow.
I didn't look at that today.
I looked at it after we.
I know Mike was up there doing work,
Okay,
so,
there.
and he's asking for additional roadway right in that area. So I'll circle back around with you on that.
Yeah, because I might go back out the next couple of days.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Have a good night.
All right.
You guys.
Nope.
Is the 94
Amy, do you want to do
person
anything
still here?
remaining things?
Yeah, I think we gotta at least
We got
talk
one more,
about.
the NAGOG, the
Invasives?
invasives.
There's a file number. Is that what's changed? There's a file number on there?
So we got the file number for it. They had a couple comments.
I saw they posted some signs.
So yeah, DEP issued the file number. They want to know if removal of the native species such as white pine, they wanted to let us, know that removing of native species such as white pine does not qualify as limited project, and yes, we weren't asking for one.
Okay, thanks.
If the intention is restored the area to an herbaceous area, a maintenance plan should be proposed with a cutting frequency that encourages the establishment of non-native plants, which is the discussion
Right, we talked
had
about
the
that,
mowing.
Yep.
Will Canada geese become reestablished, and like everyone's gonna make sure that doesn't happen. And that was all their comments.
Okay.
So I believe it's ready to close.
Okay. So I will make a motion to close the public
And
hearing.
issue a waiver.
Oh, and issue a waiver for 94 Nagog Hill Road, DEP file number 204-888.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Need to go back a couple of the administrative discussion items.
I've got too much paper building up in my house.
All right.
You haven't seen my dining room table.
So
All right, James.
Conservation Department terms of
Uh,
expiration. Andrew and Rachel are up. Andrew's reapplied. Rachel does not want to.
I nominate Matt.
Second.
Oh, we should have a discussion.
We can still discuss. No one's just like do it all the time. There's a motion. There's a motion on the table.
A lot of stuff
We're
to
up
do.
for discussion.
Have you
You're
formally
here
applied?
anyways.
He lives in my neighborhood.
You guys could commute together.
I know, but I just feel bad because I can't make it to any site visits or do anything. Like my time is I work in Boston, so I really appreciate being here and I like being involved. But
FaceTime you on site visits.
something.
We should
I
make
don't know.
more
I
use of
talked to Amy
FaceTime on
briefly.
things.
I gotta
Well,
get
why
this
don't you
figured
give it a
out.
whirl?
Well, I'm also getting put on Shade Tree Committee, I think, next month. So.
Oh, I heard that.
Yeah.
Which is
you
more
have time.
important.
You haven't told Shade Tree.
His first love.
Yeah, but look at the poor guy. He got burnt out. he lost his job at the post office.
He says, "Thank goodness."
Oh my
Well,
God.
Matt, all we can ask is that if you would consider it. That's all. There's not a tremendous amount of peer pressure, but there is peer pressure.
It would be easier than us having to advertise it for the next 30
No,
days.
that's not the way to go. That's not really how you win someone over. All right, next thing. Let's keep going.
17 Moore Lane, you did 3 Sanders Point Road was a request for certificate of compliance. A part of Littleton I had no idea existed. It was ages ago, and it's all steady. It was basically way back when they were redoing some retaining walls.
What's the number on that?
204-267.
Where's this, over to Maniwaki?
3 Sanders Point. Boy, you go over to
Make a
there,
motion
you're
that we
driving
issue
through the
a
silos,
certificate
and
of
oh my god.
compliance.
Yeah.
204.
Nice spot, though.
267.
267.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
5 Chestnut Lane, request certificate of compliance.
I never got a call from them. I keep bugging them, so it's not ready.
Okay.
You're supposed to pull out their erosion controls.
And stormwater management plan goes with that, or what?
No, the stormwater that's the MS4 for the town, which I hope I sent to you Friday. It kept bouncing like crazy, so I think it finally made it. If anybody is interested in commenting on it, it can either comment now or it's about to go out for public comment also. So.
Yeah, I saw they want the comments back kind of soon.
Yeah, but then it's going out to public, so it's a
We have
longer
little time, because I'm about halfway through it.
Okay,
It looks
great.
pretty good.
Yeah, they did a
pretty
great
thorough.
job. I was actually pretty impressed.
That was on Chestnut?
No, the stormwater management plan to support our NOI for our MS4 permit. One thing I did note when I was reading it, it said between the 2000 census and the 2010 census, Littleton went from being considered 54% developed to 78% developed.
Whoa.
So it
Ouch.
kicked us like into significantly more stormwater regulations, and then I'm also wondering if, so right now for this permit, we're considered 9,000 people, which is, I think, is low at this point. But at what point are we considered like a medium MS4? Where they
What's
kicked
the
into
next- what's
higher?
the next gap?
I don't think we're far out. So, anyways, I'm in the middle of reading it.
Yeah, okay, great. And I was actually impressed by how many things the highway department took care
Yeah,
of.
the
It's doing.
BMPs. They have a ton of BMPs.
They're doing a lot of tracking. I mean, they're
good.
They're on top of it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was not expecting to see as much as I.
Lawn care brochure, what's that?
The guy from whatever that organization is coming in, I think the end of June.
Oh, the oceans person?
Right, the oceans person, and
Oh, yeah.
he did say something about doing a brochure if you wanted something to hand out, which sounds like a really good
That'd
idea
be great
to me.
It's part of the BMPs for stormwater runoff.
It checks all sorts of
Like
boxes.
TMDL.
I'm not too sure this guy will either A, do it for free, or B, do it that, cleanly, that everybody's gonna buy in on. So I think maybe wait until hear what that guy has to say, and then I'd be interested in putting something together that, so next time we just start handing stuff out.
Wasn't it under grant or something, or so that it would be under it would be paid for? Their
I'm
their
not sure.
outreach efforts?
Well, I'm not sure what the oceans guy Oceans and River guy coming in if,
Oceans
what
and River.
his charter is. And they might be able to do something for free, which is yay. Or there is some MS4 money and we might be able to kick something loose from those guys to do something too. And everybody, planning board, water department, I mean, everybody would be in on it too, so we could all be telling people the same thing about fertilizers and stuff.
Okay. What about Cloverdale parking lot?
DOT signed off on it, it's done.
Oh,
It's
nice.
Great.
I thought this was supposed to take months before they would, so,
Huh.
So,
All right.
so I told Chris, let's go.
do we
And
need
he
to
has
vote?
not gotten back to me.
Do we need to vote on that?
No,
For the
it's-
okay? to-
Yeah, it's, the permit's been issued, so there's nothing else to do. Chris Stoddard is on notice that he can get, it's still gonna be the fall before he does anything, but.
No, but I didn't know whether we had to have a motion to final okay that this needs to go forward.
I think
Permits
we've
in
already,
place.
we've already done that.
We did it the last
Yeah,
meeting.
we did that last meeting with a couple of, I think, requested changes to the.
Yeah, they added the
Couple of
fencing, they
things.
added some planting, none of which
Right.
DOT's gonna care about.
Yeah.
Did not add any signs, it doesn't, I'm not sure if it's traffic lights or warrants, I don't know if
It
signs are
seemed like-
warranted, it
right.
didn't meet the warrants.
Yeah.
So that there is no, parking ahead type sign.
Right.
Because there's all sorts of.
Saw in the notes, so check to coast, does he need to know, he had a question, wanted to.
That was one of his
He-
things, was signage, just something to let somebody
If
know.
it's not required,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we said we were gonna look into it and then.
Right.
Yeah, it's not required, the town would own and maintain the sign,
Yeah.
so, I'm sure.
So we could post it without a permission from DOT, that's what I guess,
Not on, it would have to be on our
Be
property.
inside.
yeah,
There would certainly be a kiosk and, one of those flapping signs that
okay, all right.
LCT is gonna do.
He also mentioned that, I actually wanted to ask about the material, so the, I guess, reclaimed asphalt.
grindings.
Grindings.
Where's that gonna come from? Just
Wherever,
The town
whatever,
Town
road, whatever
Littleton.
road they're doing.
Are we
Yeah,
doing that on other?
And
Other parking
the
lots?
parking lot over on Harvard for Oak Hill, there's grindings.
Okay. That's like kind of up, I'm just thinking here,
It's a good base.
not great.
Yeah, they're pretty clean. They've been well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it should just be asphalt, and that was part of this.
Yes, it's got a sub base on it. Actually, I know what I asked Chris.
Yeah.
That's what I'll be coming back to is the price.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I asked Chris for an estimate.
So we're doing a.
Wasn't
there's
it
a
about
sub-base?
11,000?
Yeah, Chris got to crunch the numbers.
Okay.
And I would rather Chris did it than Green, because Green's gonna charge us to do it.
Right.
And it's gonna be
There's
kind of
no,
wrong
like,
anyway.
gate, there's not a gate.
All
What
right,
about-
knotweed, what about that?
Oh, I didn't look this up. Glenn Berger, 73 Hartwell, did meet its appeal, so it's all set to go. And when you issue the order conditions, there's some discussion about what to do about the Japanese knotweed.
I was wondering what they were doing.
And
They've
y'all
put it-
kind of agreed, like, we're gonna deal with that later. Well, hey, it's later. So he's came in, he's airing about, he wants to do more lawn, because wouldn't it be great if they were mowing the knotweed and they put in lawn instead? I'm like,
Spreading the knotweed with their lawnmower.
well, yeah, so, and most of the knotweed's not gonna get knocked down, because it's outside the construction
Right.
area anyway.
Well, but it is, they're mowing it currently, they're mowing it within the buffer zone currently.
Right, which is what they would still be
Yeah.
doing. So, I gotta pull it back out, and I know if someone wanted to be interested to talk to them about it or not.
It's just really hard to.
Yeah, it's.
Well, and it's, so one of the, this brings up the challenges with this, since they permitted it to sell. And so I feel as though we need to ask that question, and the order of conditions needs to be different, because we're holding some future owner to something they're never gonna, I mean, it, just
Well,
the
right
reality
now,
of implementation.
it does not include mowing, the order conditions.
Yeah, I thought we addressed some knotweed though.
I think it was basically by the limit of the wall and
To,
where
to
the original
remove
was.
it, to like
Yeah.
remove it and
Yeah.
remediate it.
What
Thought-
herbicide takes it out?
Roundup.
You sure?
You have to paint it on.
No, I'm serious, there's certain
Yeah.
stuff that Roundup will not take
Right.
out.
Yeah, it
No, not
takes more
weeds.
than 1 year.
Yeah. No, I know.
Yeah.
I think you have to inject the
Yeah.
stems
You can't just
individually.
spray it.
It's
Yeah.
really bad, which
Yeah.
is why why I'm harp on people, do you have knotweed and don't move it around?
And the new, by the order of conditions, the new owner will be required to come in before, if they buy for certificate of compliance, so like all the Turkey people had to come
I
in.
wonder if they know ahead of time that they need to manage a knotweed problem.
Before they get a closing.
Yeah, exactly.
There's all this money and effort going to GMOs. Why don't they do something
Knotweed
to kill
evolved
off
in
the
Japan
knotweed?
under lava.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So it's like hard.
Isolate some
kill
sort
it.
of gene and kill it, you know?
Yeah.
Is that something that was shipped into the country as a
Yeah.
for
Yeah, it was
some reason?
it was
response.
pretty and the I think stabilization stuff like that.
Eat it.
All right.
If anybody cares, I'm taking vacation July 1 to 4.
You deserve it. Have fun.
Okay. An extra week on. You don't want to know about that. And then there's various butterfly stuff and BioFlip stuff and
Oh, I haven't
monarch
seen the
stuff.
butterfly one.
What is the status of monarchs?
It's
Upside
great.
down.
Dire.
What's
Dire.
that?
I think it's
I have not seen a monarch.
This is the Nagog Hill Road thing needs to be signed. Almost made it through the night. The invasive species. We finally got the number for that.
When is Rachel's term up?
In the beginning of June.
Oh wow, that's soon.
That's soon.
I think it's the end of June.
Be
I
July
think they want
1st.
the applications
Yeah.
by June 3rd or
think
something.
That makes
put
sense.
the
It is early
June
June
on the
with the
bucket
terms
and you can raise
expire.
them. That's-
Oh,
that's
but
group
the
of
planning
raising
board
the
is making
monarchs.
appointments until
Oh, raise
the end
the
of June.
milkweed or raise the monarch?
Yeah, late mid or late
Yeah,
June.
Assuming it's even.
And then you
They want the
like let them go through the life
applications by
cycle and then you
June
release
3rd.
them. That way they don't get eaten while they're growing.
Third. You better remind Matt.
I'm gonna sign them up.
Dad, he can do.
I mean, you just put a big sign on his front lawn.
Oh, yeah, we have our ways, yeah.
No, your product.
Done?
Yes, thank you.
Screw the
Anybody
shade
wanna
tree
close?
committee.
And if I see the monarch,
Second.
Sure. Oh.
Do I can have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
You just had one.
And a
Second.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.